Chapter 924. On the other side. Zhang Feng slowly came to the bamboo hut of Yu Shinan and the others. Although the villa for them was almost finished, and the bamboo hut for them had been renovated long ago, the four old masters took a different path and lived in elder son's place. They did not mind the smell of herbs inside. When Zhang Feng came to greet them, Yu Shinan and the others looked gloomy. Zhang Feng had long known that they would behave like this. He pretended not to see them and bowed. Student Zhang Feng pays his respects to all my teachers and elder Sunday. Oh. Isn't the dean here in person? Come, take a seat. When Ouyang Sun heard this, he acted as if he had just seen Zhang Feng and hurriedly got up to greet him. Zhang Feng was speechless when he saw this. As Ouyang Sun stood on the main seat, he did not know whether to sit or stand. Helplessly, he said, "This little one understands the intentions of my esteemed teachers. This little one's actions are indeed to fend off the foreign enemies. As a man of the great Tang, as a Han, this little one believes that each of us should have the responsibility to protect our country." Yes, you are right. Everything you say is right. We are old and confused. Ouyang Sun continued faintly, "I asked you to come here today mainly to hand over the matters of the academy. Old man will return to Luozhou tomorrow morning. Looks like he's really pissed off." Zhang Feng instantly felt a splitting headache. He thought of many things in the ancient language, but he felt that they were inappropriate at this time. He could only say, "Believe me, please listen to my plan. The Mitsubishi Army knife is indeed cruel in your eyes." Cruel? Ouyang Sun sneered. You know what cruelty is? Do you know that it is your group of people who have designed such vicious things that have caused suffering and suffering? That is why people have so many greedy and evil thoughts. And now, you're saying that you created all these things for the sake of protection? Which one of the people who designed these vicious weapons didn't say that they were protecting the common people? Ouyang Sun was so angry that his face turned pale. Zhang Feng knew that he couldn't out-talk him. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Seeing this, Ouyang Sun asked again, "What's wrong? You can't say it?" Chu Suiliang and the other two also looked at Zhang Feng with a solemn expression and said, "Zhang Feng kid, the reason why we came up the mountain was not because of your wine and food, but because we wanted to see what kind of amazing genius your unconventional academy could cultivate. However, what you showed us today was not something that could benefit people, but something that would cause misery and suffering. What do you have to say about this?" Seeing that Chu Suiliang was giving him a way out, Zhang Feng hurriedly bowed to Chu Suiliang and said, "Mr. Deng Shan. The reason why I did this is entirely because of Lao Li and the safety of the foreign merchants of the Tang dynasty. You should have heard that 300,000 troops besieged Chinla, and serious civil strife broke out in Tubo and Tuyuhun. I'm sure that the Turks won't just sit by and do nothing. Therefore, all of this is a conspiracy against the Tang dynasty. You can ask around. Since the drought in Longyu, extreme cold weather broke out in the northern grassland, and the pasture was seriously damaged. Then, the Turks broke out in civil strife. What happened after that? After that, there was a plague of locusts. Fortunately, the Tang dynasty has a wise and powerful emperor, so although we avoided the famine caused by the drought and the plague of locusts, they are different. For example, let's say that the kid's neighbor and the kid suffer from a food shortage at the same time. It's only because the kid is prepared and has stockpiled a lot of food, but the neighbor has been without food for several days. What do you think the neighbor will do? Ask for food. But there is only a little food, and it's not enough for the family to eat. I don't know how long the famine will last. If they can't get food, what will they do?" Sun Simiao stroked his beard and said, "If your analogy is used in the relationship between the Turks and the Tang dynasty, it's nothing more than robbery." Zhang Feng heard this and nodded. He cupped his fists gratefully and said, "Indeed, I only have a little bit of food in my house. If I lend it out, it will attract the attention of the entire village, and even the mountain bandits and robbers. Do you think I can only give what belongs to me to them? Or should I say that what belongs to me should belong to them? And if I fight back or defend passively, it's all my fault?" Zhang Feng's pressuring made them instantly speechless. Especially Ouyang Sun. Ouyang Sun sighed and walked back to his desk to sit down. Only then did he say, "What you said makes sense. However, hasn't His Majesty already sent out his troops? Why does he have to make such cruel weapons?" "Cruel?" Zhang Feng laughed. "May I ask if you have been to the battlefield?" "This." Ouyang Sun was stunned and said, "I haven't." "Good. That kid is asking if anyone has seen the tragic state of the place after the war between two armies or after it was plundered by the Turks." They were speechless again. Seeing this, Zhang Feng looked around and said, "I have seen it." Chapter 925. Of course, Zhang Feng hadn't seen it before. But he had watched a lot of TV and movies. These things were still very easy for him to obtain. Seeing that they were all fooled, Zhang Feng pretended to be sad and said, "I've seen it. My teacher has seen it too. In July of the first year of Zhongguan, that is, the Wei River Alliance last year. You should remember it, right? At that time, Shili and Tuli joined forces with 500,000 soldiers to go south and fought all the way to the bank of Wei River. You should remember this, right?" They frowned. But they still nodded. At this time, Zhang Feng said again, "Do you know what happened to the people of the Tang dynasty after they burned and robbed along the way? The people were plunged into misery and suffering. It was not just misery and suffering. It was purgatory on earth." Zhang Feng showed a sad look. In an instant, they couldn't help but be moved. How could they not remember what happened last year? At this time, Zhang Feng continued, "Wherever they went, they burned, robbed, and killed. This was how they treated the unarmed people of the Tang dynasty. Those who died were fine, but what about those who didn't die? Wailing in serious injuries, waiting for death, slowly waiting for death and hunger, this kind of despair. Is this what we learned from the books of the saints? Can we just sit here and wait for death? Go to the reclining square and look at the old and weak soldiers. They have all experienced life and death. They are all flesh and blood. Why are they willing to risk their lives to fight the enemy? Why? That's because behind them are the words of the Tang dynasty. It's his home. There are babies crying for food in his home, and the old mother who gave birth to him and raised him." Zhang Feng's voice became louder and louder. In the end, they basically vented by shouting. Sun Simiao's eyes gradually became red. "Kid, you're right. When the old man went to Longyu to practice medicine, he encountered a Turkic raid. Although the old man was lucky enough to escape while gathering herbs in the mountains, but that's why old man understands you. Alas." Hearing this, Yu Shinan and the others sighed heavily. Zhang Feng took the opportunity to rub his eyes a few times, making them red. Then he said, "Respected teachers, the weapon is not vicious, but the person who uses it is the one who carries the comfort of the world. Therefore, I feel that what I did was not wrong. If respected teachers already feel that protecting my territory from being invaded and protecting my people is a comfort, and that these things are unorthodox for people like us who study the teachings of Confucius and Mencius, then I will not keep you any longer." After he finished speaking, Zhang Feng bowed and left resolutely. Everyone was dumbstruck as they watched Zhang Feng leave. Yu Shinan stared at Zhang Feng's back, narrowed his eyes, and said, "Trust me, are you satisfied?" Ouyang Sun smacked his lips and said, "Did this kid misunderstand the meaning of the old man? This kid is using magic to scold us for wasting decades of study, isn't he? Hey! That bastard!" Ouyang Sun immediately exploded when he thought about it. Fortunately, Sun Simiao hurriedly held him down and said with a smile, "Old man, save it. The old man thinks that even if we fight a war of words together, we may not be able to beat this kid." Hearing this, they could not help but smile. Ouyang Sun, on the other hand, could only drink his tea and smoke angrily. Seeing this, Sun Simiao said, "Zhang Feng is right. Weapons are no longer vicious. Just like this medicine, in the hands of the old man, it can be both an antidote and a poison. The key is how to use it. And this kid also said that this thing, he is just doing it for the purpose of some kind of academic research. He wants to find more talents like this and invest in it. In other words, Zhang Feng is creating endless talents for the Tang dynasty. Isn't this spreading new branches and spreading new leaves? Just like the establishment of White Deer College. You can all see that this kid is ambitious. This time, the second Masterly personally agreed. Old Masterly is also the vice dean of the college. Just now, the second Masterly did not object. And I heard that the second Masterly asked this kid to start a business on the mountain. Just like the paper mill, the second Masterly did not say anything. What can we say? Hearing this. Ouyang Sun and the others could not help but remember that Li Shimin was still on the mountain. They could not help but look more serious. They all knew that the emperor urged Zhang Feng to open the college. And the reason why the college could be what it was today was because of the 3 generations of the Li family. Otherwise, how could a guy without strength, fame, and influence open a college in Chang'an? Are you dreaming or not? At this time, they carefully thought about Zhang Feng's words and could not help but think about it. They really understood something. Yu Shinan looked at them with a wry smile and said, "Brothers, you see, do you want to stay? Or what? If you want to leave, I'll go to the second Masterly now." Nonsense. Ouyang Sun slammed the table and said, "If we are not in the college, won't that kid turn it upside down? Who said that the old man is going to leave? He's not leaving. The old man wants to see what this bastard kid can do." Chapter 926. Outside the door. Zhang Feng didn't go far at all. In fact, Zhang Feng's heart had been in a panic for a long time. If these old stubborn people really took this matter to heart and quit, he would be miserable. But fortunately, after listening for a while, Zhang Feng's mind calmed down. With elder son's help, what he said just now was really effective. Zhang Feng didn't say any lies. These were all facts. However, there are always some people who are addicted to books, as well as their own biased view of the world. Does the pure land that they have imagined exist in this world? It did. It only existed if your fist was big enough. At this time, seeing that the situation was settled, Zhang Feng couldn't help but begin to think about the future plan. The dormitory buildings of the students and teachers had been uprooted, but they hadn't been renovated yet. However, this was a matter of time. At most, there was still a month before it would be full of students. Between the 2 dormitory buildings under the waterfall, there was originally a large area of thatch and reeds, and there was a big stone in the middle. However, at this time, several shirtless men were directing a group of stonemasons to carve something. Zhang Feng didn't bother to disturb them, lest he couldn't leave again. The grass and reeds around the stone sculpture had long been cleared away. At this time, there was really a group of people lining up. They were like worker ants, carrying baskets of cement. Not far away, a group of students was arguing about something with a piece of white paper under a crooked sycamore tree. Yu Baoqi, who looked silly, was actually sitting on the side and taking a nap. There were also groups of students around them, asking for advice from time to time. Obviously, it could be seen that Yu Shinan and others were very resourceful, managing this place in an orderly manner. However, when Zhang Feng's eyes drifted to the call of the pig farm not far away, he found that Mrs. Li, who was in a pink gauze, was actually squatting by the stream with Zhu Zi, Guzi, Jing Shu, and Zhang Yuyao, quietly waiting for a group of children to burn the beggar's chicken. A breeze blew over them. Jing Shu actually made bursts of laughter that made Zhang Feng a little obsessed. At this moment, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little obsessed. But when he thought of Jing Shu, Zhang Yuyao, and Zhang Feng's head suddenly hurt. Alas! With a heavy sigh, Zhang Feng hurriedly fled the scene at the moment when Jing Shu looked over. It was as if he had been caught cheating on someone. When Zhang Feng returned to the cabin, Shiva seemed to have something to say, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He just signaled to the room with his eyes. Zhang Feng didn't care. But when he pushed the door open, he was stunned. Originally, he thought that he had just explained the matter of the steel to Lao Li, and this guy should have rushed to do it. He didn't expect him to still be here. Seeing Zhang Feng come back, Li Shimin was minding his own business as he boiled tea in the small stove and asked with a smile, "How is it? It seems that the matter is settled?" "It's settled, but it's really a headache. This matter, I'll leave it to you in the future. It's so annoying." Zhang Feng pushed Li Shimin up from the reclining chair and sat his butt down. Only then did he say. Li Shimin was stunned and asked, "You mean, you'll leave the smelter to me? You don't have to worry." Zhang Feng's right index finger and middle finger were pinched. Li Shimin's eyelids twitched, but he still passed Zhang Feng a cigarette. Zhang Feng took a puff and squinted his eyes. "What else? These things aren't complicated. I've said before that I'm only responsible for teaching. As for how they do it, I don't care. As long as there's no problem with the finished product, it's considered done. Otherwise, what do you want me to do with this mess on the mountain? I'm already busy here, and I still have to serve the other side. Don't you think I'm tired? Anyway, from now on, you can handle these businesses. I'll just be in charge of splitting the money. After all, the three of you have shares in this academy. I don't believe that you won't care." "Shares? What's that?" Li Shimin hurriedly asked. Zhang Feng saw that the more he explained, the more troublesome it would be. He couldn't help but wave his hand and say, I don't know. Anyway, this matter is settled. The meaning of shares is... Forget it, I can't explain it clearly. Share it." As he spoke, Zhang Feng went into the room where the books were stored. As soon as he entered the door, he almost had a nosebleed. He didn't know when Jing Shu had already tidied up the place. She had even placed a bed in front of the window. At this moment, there was a pair of sky-colored hot pants on the bed. Zhang Feng's mouth was dry as he looked at it. After looking away with difficulty, he pulled out a few pieces of white paper from the book of Jin. After exiting the room, Zhang Feng stuffed all the papers in his hand into Li Shimin's hands. These are all the key points in the production of firearms. Each piece of paper is a part. You can split them up and give them to your subordinates. Remember, don't spread these things out, especially the last piece. As Zhang Feng spoke, Li Shimin hurriedly pulled out the last piece of paper. Hao Ran saw the complete drawing of a gun that was made to look like a rifle. It appeared in their line of sight. Li Shimin hadn't seen the power of this thing yet. However, today he had seen the hastily made Mitsubishi stiletto. He couldn't help but regard the drawing in his hands as a treasure. Don't worry, even if I, Li Lauer, lose my life, no one will be able to take a peek at this plaything. Chapter 927. Upon hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded. That's all I need to hear. Just like what I've said earlier, if the things in my head were to spread out, the entire Great Tang dynasty would be in turmoil. Do you believe me? Not only that, but there will also be situations that will change the structure of the world. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better for me to write a book about all these things? Li Shimin also knew the seriousness of the matter, so he waved his hand and said, Wait a moment. While speaking, Li Shimin stood up. The moment he turned around, his eyes instantly regained the wisdom and domineering aura of an emperor. When he opened the door, Li Shimin didn't do anything, so he closed the door again. The moment Li Shimin closed the door, all the guards who were originally guarding Shao Mountain instantly approached Zhang Feng's cabin. Even their eyes became like that of an eagle's at this moment. They looked around coldly. At this time, Shiva was also invited to the mountain gate by 2 guards. No one knew what he was going to do. Only then did Li Shimin say, I know what you said, and I also know that it's related to interests. The reason you don't use the craftsmen of the Tang dynasty is that you're afraid that these people won't keep their mouths shut. But have you ever thought that if this group of people, once their families come, then they... Is there a lot of such things in history? In ancient times, in the Shang dynasty, in order to fight against the foreign barbarians, Fu Hao personally went to the battlefield. Wasn't this because King Zhou of Yin also felt that these barbarians were nothing to be afraid of? In the previous dynasty, Yang Guang insisted on destroying Goguryeo and underestimating the Turks. Is there a lot of such things? quite a lot. If you knew that there would be the Enlushan Rebellion and the Meng Yuan dynasty's invasion of the south, would you say so? Zhang Feng opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end. After all, Old Li would only take it as a fool's dream even if he told Old Li about it. Besides, I've already taken out the blunderbuss. As long as no one dares to make an enemy out of the Great Tang, no one will dare to make an enemy of the Great Tang. However, these things were hard to say. Therefore, at this time, Zhang Feng was also a little upset. Alright, Lao Li, I understand what you're talking about. That's why I separated all the blueprints. This will prevent the core technology from being leaked. As long as we keep this core secret, even if someone finds out, what can they do? So what if he has the craftsmanship of the firearms? Do you know what Lao Tzu's intention is? Hearing Zhang Feng's words, Li Shimon's interest was instantly piqued. Why? You keep talking about this matter, but, Zhang Feng sneered and said, actually, this gun is for others to see. And to put it bluntly, although the gun is good, the speed of reloading is too slow. If you don't believe me, you can try it when the time comes. But this is only relative. The main thing is that the gun's lethality isn't good enough. It didn't meet my expectations. However, if these people had brought out the good stuff from the beginning, they wouldn't have been able to come up with it. Therefore, they could only come up with some simple stuff. Then, they would go from simple to complicated, and they would slowly study it in turn. This is the normal evolution process of a new kind of thing. Zhang Feng patted Li Shimon's shoulder and looked at Li Shimon's confused eyes. In short, everything will come out. The key is whether or not Algernon and the others can be cultivated into the first batch of science freaks in the Academy of Sciences. Only by cultivating this group of slaves with no roots and no foundation can I cultivate them. Then I'll use the strategy of a stick and a red date. I believe that they will continue to be crazy in my endless theoretical experiments. Even if I ask them to leave the laboratory, they won't be willing to do so. Even if the Emperor personally comes to pull them out. Zhang Feng smiled slyly and looked at Li Shimon's confused eyes. When the time comes, this group of crazy people will dare to pick up a hammer and go against the Emperor. Li Shimon was speechless. You mean, these people will all be crazy? What do you think? In ancient times, people scraped their bones to heal their wounds and endured hardships to gain courage. Where did all these come from? This is the result of persistence for one thing. Some people live for fame and fortune, while others only seek the truth. Take Divine Dr. Sun for example. He doesn't ask for anything else, but in the medical field, Divine Dr. Sun has always been moving forward. Is he for fame and fortune? Or for money? He just wants to go further in the medical field, so these people are the same. When I tested them on the first day and took out the guns and steel, I was sure that these people can do it. Although they are not as good as Elder Sun, they can do it. Li Shimon nodded. He remembered that there were some records of these lunatics in the history books, and they were much more detailed than what Zhang Feng had said. However, Li Shimon was a little shocked that Zhang Feng could use such a method to grasp the psychology of these people so accurately. Fengzi, are these the psychological tactics you set up in the academy? Chapter 928. Li Shimon only knew about the tactics of the Emperor. He also knew about the martial arts that Zhang Feng displayed before, but this, psychological tactics. Li Shimon couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He stretched out his hand and said, "Such a good thing, you don't want to share it?" Seeing this, Zhang Feng slapped away Li Shimon's hand and said, "Do you think this thing can come just because you want it?" While speaking, Zhang Feng pointed to his head. This thing depends on one's perception. Do you think you can understand it if I show it to you? You're just a small businessman. Can you understand this thing? Li Shimon touched his nose and glanced at Zhang Feng. He also knew that he was being too hasty. He just joked, "Didn't you say before that this thing is actually a trade route? I'm a businessman and often go to those chaotic places. Don't you think about my safety? We're all brothers. Look at you, TSK. Hearing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little anxious. Okay, okay. When I work overtime at night, I'll get you a book. But you have to keep it well. This thing can really be passed down as a family heirloom. I can guarantee that as long as you have this thing, it'll be hard for your family not to prosper. In fact, don't be fooled by how awesome the 5 major clans are now. As long as you really learn a little bit of their skills, I dare to bet that in less than 10 years, these guys will have to call you Big Brother. Li Shimin naturally wouldn't believe Zhang Feng's words. However, as long as this kind of psychology existed, why would Li Shimin be afraid of them? Seeing this, Li Shimin laughed heartily and said, "Brother, you're still the most practical. It's a pity that there's no wine. Otherwise, we'll get drunk." "Don't. What do you want to do after getting me drunk?" Zhang Feng was startled. There were several times when these people got him drunk and ran away with some unknown trick. How could Zhang Feng be fooled again? After the two of them laughed and joked for a while, they were suddenly attracted by the noise outside. Li Shimin couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What's going on the mountain today?" Zhang Feng was also confused. "No. Let's go out and take a look." As they spoke, they opened the door at the same time. The moment he opened the door, Zhang Feng shouted, "Shiva, Shiva, where are you?" "He's here." Shiva's timid voice came from the kitchen not far away. Shiva's expression was very strange. He looked at Li Shimin and wanted to greet him, but he didn't dare. In the end, he could only brace himself and cupped his fists towards Li Shimin, masterly, "Feng Zi." "Hey." Zhang Feng didn't notice these details and asked, "What's going on?" "Over there, Mr. Bo Sure is holding some sort of kuju competition. If all the students win, they can enjoy private lessons from the teachers." Zhang Feng and Li Shimin couldn't help but look at each other. They were really interested. "These masters, why are they learning from me? Let's go and take a look." "Shiva, tell us, what is this rule and when did it start?" Zhang Feng and Li Shimin walked in front while Shiva followed Zhang Feng like an attendant. When the guards saw Lawyer Han and Zhang Feng come out, they wobbled and returned to their posts as if nothing had happened. Along the way, Zhang Feng and Li Shimin also saw many students rushing towards the waterfall. Now, at the edge of the waterfall, someone had used quicklime to draw a huge field on the lush green grass. On the field, groups of students were lined up, looking around. Even though Zhang Feng was far away, he could still see the basketball flying in the air. He couldn't help but be so angry that his beard was trembling. Li Shimin also saw the basketball and looked at Zhang Feng. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back. At this moment, Zhang Feng's angry roar rang out. "Who allowed you to play like this? All of you, stop." Zhang Feng's voice was very loud. Even the noisy kuju could be faintly heard. Even the 3 girls, Zhang Sun and Wu Go, were standing under the crooked jujube tree not far from the waterfall. They were eating jujubes that had just been picked from the jujube tree. At this time, they were curiously staring at Zhang Feng. However, Empress Zhang Sun was naturally more intelligent than others. Thinking about the situation at the foot of the mountain, she couldn't help but smile. Yu Shernan and the others couldn't help but frown. With their hands behind their back, they stared at Zhang Feng, who was hurriedly carrying his robe, and said, "Brat, what are you doing? Isn't it just a kuju? Did you play at the foot of the mountain? Don't tell me we can't play at the top of the mountain." Zhang Feng was speechless as he stared at the muddy footprints on the field and said, "Teacher, this thing isn't kuju. It's a basketball. It's played with your hands." Seeing that he couldn't explain it clearly, Zhang Feng hurriedly waved at Li Shimin. "Old Li, why don't you tell them how to play basketball?" "I can't explain it clearly." Li Shimin heard this and sighed. He stepped forward and explained to everyone. Chapter 929. With Li Shimin's explanation, Yu Shernan and the others finally understood. "I thought that you were busy with the mid-autumn hunt at the foot of the mountain and didn't know how you were doing. Therefore, I came to a conclusion when I saw the basketball you brought up. Didn't you want to invite the people from the mid-autumn hunt to Shao Mountain? Isn't this the time to show off the spirit of our academy? Therefore, this kuju game is indispensable. Since this kid doesn't want to play basketball, boys, whoever knows how to play kuju, stand out for the old man and let the dean see your skills. In the future, when the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights come up the mountain, it will be the time for you to show your faces. Yu Shinan and the others were indeed old men. After seeing the truth of the matter, they ignored Zhang Feng and only spoke to Li Shimin. Zhang Feng was so angry that he rolled his eyes. Li Shimin was also interested. He waved his hand and made the decision for Zhang Feng. Is there kuju on the mountain? Yes. I loved kuju when I was at the foot of the mountain, so I brought one up the mountain. Most of the students here didn't know Li Shimin, not to mention that Li Shimin had put on some makeup. They only knew that he was the dean's brother and had a good relationship with the four great Confucians. At this moment, a few students hurriedly ran to find kuju. Li Shimin and Yu Shinan sat in front of the stage and then waved to Zhang Feng and said, "Come and sit. Take it as relaxing. You are busy all day. It's a good thing to have kuju on the mountain. When the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights come and see that there is nothing on the mountain, where will you put your face?" Seeing this, Zhang Feng could only sit beside Li Shimin angrily. At the same time, the two kuju teams also entered the field. According to Li Shimin's comments, one of the teams looked cynical. Moreover, the people who were dressed gorgeously were the stubborn people from Chang'an City. As for the other team, there was no need for Li Shimin to introduce them. Zhang Feng naturally knew them. The leader was the current manager of the paper mill, Qian Wanli. Behind him were all people from the paper mill. However, when they looked at those stubborn people, their eyes were filled with disdain. A whistle sounded. The two teams rushed onto the field. As for the stubborn ones, they had also inherited their own ruffian tendencies and helpless techniques. They would use all kinds of sinister and ruthless moves. It didn't take long for these stubborn players to gang up on him as they repeatedly broke the rules. This scene made Zhang Feng unable to look straight at it. He had long overestimated the kuju of the Tang dynasty, but now it seemed that, how was this King kuju? This was simply a group of helpless farts fighting, okay? In less than 2 hours, Qian Wanli and the others were beaten up and kicked off the stage. It seemed that Mr. Si Tong, Chu Suiliang, and Elder Chu had placed a heavy bet on this match. Elder Chu slammed his hand on the tea table dejectedly and gritted his teeth in anger. Zhang Feng couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Laoli, is this the kuju of the Tang dynasty?" Li Shimin was also stunned. "Haven't you seen this thing before? The kuju of the Tang dynasty is famous. Has it always been like this? Is there a problem?" Hearing this, Yu Shinan also said to Zhang Feng with a smile, "Boy, do you think this is not as exciting as your basketball? This is where wisdom and physical strength are tested. The thing you said, is it?" Alas. Zhang Feng sighed heavily. He had overestimated these people. If this were to continue, then tomorrow, this mountain would be filled with wails of anguish. How could this be an academy's competition? This was simply a group of street thugs fighting, okay? The craftsmen, women, and children were all cheering excitedly. Was this the entertainment of the Tang dynasty? This was simply, okay. From today onwards, kuju will be removed from the academy. If anyone has a personal grudge, go and fight. As long as you don't beat him to death or break his arm or leg, Lao Tzu won't care. Hearing this, Yu Shinan and the others, as well as Li Shimin's eyes, lit up. Then Yu Shinan asked, "Do you want everyone to play basketball?" "No." Zhang Feng shook his head. "That's just a part of the entertainment. What you said just now really enlightened me. Learn when you have to learn, and learn to use. So I've decided that from tomorrow onwards, everyone must do morning classes every morning." "Morning classes? What's that?" Not only Yu Shinan, but all the students present could not help but discuss. However, most of them could not help but show a hint of excitement in their eyes. Especially the students of the papermaking workshop. "Teacher, please enlighten me." Qian Wanli got up from the grass and asked without caring about his bruised and swollen face. Soon after, everyone came to their senses. The dean was going to give a lecture. As for the rumors about Zhang Feng, they were all talked about enthusiastically on the mountain. Seeing that Zhang Feng was going to teach them something, everyone quickly followed Qian Wanli's example and bowed. What was he going to teach? Zhang Feng had already thought about it, but he did not carry it out. After thinking for a while, Zhang Feng raised his hands and gestured slightly before saying, "This is a type of gymnastics. I call it morning exercises. I learned it by chance when I observed my teacher practicing the 5 animal frolics." Hearing this, not only the students present, even Li Shimon's eyes could not help but light up. The 5 animal frolics was so mysterious that even he had to practice it every morning. Could it be that this kid had also mastered it? Seeing this, Zhang Feng sat cross-legged on the ground and pretended to be mysterious. After a while, he shouted, "The 8th set of radio gymnastics begins now. 1 2 3 4, 2 2 3 4. Chapter 930. Looking at Zhang Feng's movements, which could not be considered elegant, but could not be considered handsome either. Not to mention the few people sitting at the top, even all the students present were stunned. However, the women, the veterans, and the onlooking craftsmen burst into laughter instead. Zhang Feng knew that these things seemed a little out of place, but he still braced himself and finished this set of morning exercises. Then, he took a deep breath and said, "Qian Wanli, did you see clearly just now?" Qian Wanli did not know that Zhang Feng would actually use him. He said in a daze, if master can teach me again, I will naturally understand. Okay, come and find me tonight. When you learn it, you can sleep." Zhang Feng did not hesitate. He waved his hand and said loudly, "Everyone is dismissed for today. Think about it carefully. From now on, you must start morning exercises every day at 7 in the morning. Then, run 3 laps around the academy for me. Dismissed." These words were said in one breath. Even if Yu Shinan wanted to stop them, he did not have the chance. After Zhang Feng sat down and took a sip of tea, a few people asked, "Kid, why does old man feel that this set of tricks of yours is useless? Don't you think so, brother son? Brother son? Brother son?" When Yu Shinan called out 3 times, there was still no response. Everyone could not help but look up in confusion. When they looked up, they realized that Sun Simiao had been staring at Zhang Feng's position in a daze. After the last shout, Sun Simiao came back to his senses. He coughed and said, "Is this morning exercise really from the 5 animal frolics?" At this moment, everyone finally realized where the problem was. With a whoosh, they looked at Zhang Feng. Although the 5 animal frolics was not considered a classic, there were copies of this kind on the market. The few people here were all experts in this field. However, what was this that Zhang Feng had just brought? When had they ever seen something like this? Hearing Sun Simiao's question, Li Shimin couldn't help but ask, "Dr. Sun, do you think there's a problem with this thing?" Sun Simiao nodded solemnly. With an extremely solemn expression, he said, "Although the old man can't tell where this kid got this thing from, this thing is indeed a good thing. Although it's not as noisy as the 5 animal frolics, it's a lot more interesting." So, what you mean is, Zhang Feng's heart was also hanging by a thread. He didn't know what Sun Simiao was going to say. However, this thing was improved after a long period of research by many people. It was suitable for primary and secondary school students. There shouldn't be any problems, right? Under Zhang Feng's nervous gaze, Sun Simiao stroked his beard and shook his head. After a while, he said, "That's right. This thing is good stuff. Connecting the blood vessels and activating the qi and blood, this method is amazing." Hearing this, Zhang Feng heaved a sigh of relief. This gymnastics could be said to have been put into practice. However, although Yu Shinan and the others had some doubts, since Sun Simiao had said so, what could they do? Although they wanted to say something, they didn't say anything in the end. "Kid, since everyone is here, let's take this opportunity to talk about the academy." Ouyang Sun took advantage of the crowd and said. Yu Shinan also nodded. We have to talk about this matter. Zhang Feng stood up and said, Dear teachers, please speak your mind. Yu Shinan nodded. He cupped his hands at Li Shimin and stood up. He pointed to the newly built academy building and said, The academy is about to be completed. The writing of the teaching materials you mentioned is also in progress. Before the academy opens, it will be done. However, the only problem is, when will the teaching materials and the strange desks that you made in the academy be done? Also, the academy's motto is too hasty. We pondered over it for an entire night. Yesterday morning, we came up with a school motto. You can take a look at it another day. If there are no problems, the academy's motto should be implemented. Otherwise, there are too many people in the academy. It won't be good if everyone is bound by rules. The other thing is the arrangement of the classes and the morning exercises you mentioned just now. How are you going to allocate the time reasonably? This, Zhang Feng managed to get the answer right away. During this period of time, although these things had been going on, Zhang Feng really didn't pay attention to these things. Even the teaching of Yu Shinan and the others was only done when he thought of it. Now that Yu Shinan mentioned it, Zhang Feng remembered that there wasn't much time left. He quickly said, I'll come up with a class schedule tonight. Let's talk about it at night. The teaching materials and desks should be ready for now. I'll go and ask later. As he spoke, Zhang Feng waved at Shiva and then at Guzi, who was hiding at the side. You two, go to the back of the mountain now. Guzi, you should know where Tai Nyo and the others live, right? It's right behind there. Go and ask. Tell them that I told them to report to me how many desks they have made before tonight. Also, call Old Gon and the old village chief for a meeting tonight. Chapter 931. Zhang Feng did things. Or he didn't. Procrastinating. If he wanted to do it, he had to do it swiftly and decisively. And this matter, he really had to deal with it. Li Shimin and Empress Zhangsun brought Li Tai to stay in Li Yuan's bamboo house. Then, they chatted with Yu Shinan and the others about something. They never left the house. Jing Shu and Meng Meng felt bored. Naturally, they followed Zhang Feng back to the small wooden house. They didn't stay in the small wooden house for long. The old village chief rushed Gan Ziyuan into the small wooden house with his walking stick. Shiva was about to leave, but was stopped by Zhang. Zhang Feng didn't dawdle. He asked, Old village chief, how are the profits of the paper mill and food factory? Speaking of this, the old village chief couldn't help but feel proud. He smiled mysteriously. You still know how to ask? I thought that you, as the head of the family, had really become a hands-off shopkeeper. The paper mill's business is still fine. Didn't you split some of it? Now that some of Lao Li's people have come, the paper mill has also expanded a lot. Every day, I will take 100 caddies of white paper for the academy's consumption. Even so, the paper mill still has 700 caddies of white paper every day. It is sold in the shops of the lords in Chang'an. Looking at it now, look at the cellar behind your wooden house. Everything inside has been changed into gold ingots. It was unknown who spread the news that Zhang Feng liked gold ingots. Or maybe the old village chief himself liked gold ingots. In short, the profits of this period were all exchanged into gold ingots. As for the lighter banknotes, although it was made by Zhang Feng, the old village chief always felt that those things were unreliable. What if they were damp or eaten by insects, then what would happen? Zhang Feng didn't know what to say, so he nodded. He knew about the underground cellar at the back of the mountain. Other than him and the old village chief, no one else knew about it. The old village chief's son guarded that place all night long. He even built a house there using stones. As long as it wasn't something serious, the old village chief's son wouldn't come out even if he was dead. Zhang Feng had never seen it before. He couldn't help but ask curiously, how many gold ingots are there in the cellar now? Hey! You brat, now you know. The old village head glanced at Shiva proudly, then whispered into Zhang Feng's ear, that's over 10,000 taels. Although Zhang Feng had already been mentally prepared, he was still shocked to see so much profit in just 10 days. However, just as Zhang Feng was about to go take a look, the old village chief's action made Zhang Feng wilt instantly. The old village chief chuckled as he walked in front of the blushing Zhang Yuyao and said, as the saying goes, men take care of external affairs while women take care of internal affairs. Feng Zi is an expert at making money, but spending money isn't easy either. This key is the key to the underground cellar. Today, this old man will hand it over to you. As he spoke, under Zhang Feng's envious gaze, the old village chief stuffed the key into Zhang Yuyao's hand. Then, ignoring the blushing Zhang Yuyao, he turned to Jingshu and said, "You are a good girl. Old man isn't as good as you in all aspects. Feng Zi, this child, I will need you to work harder in the future. This is the key to the food factory." Now, in the cave at the back of the food factory, all the rations on the mountain are hidden there. Adding them all up, this old man has just calculated that there are about 20,000 on. The daily income, the account books, etc. Tomorrow, find some time to go down the mountain. This old man will let you take a look at the account books. Old village chief, I can't do this. I don't have any status, how can I take on this responsibility? Jingshu hurriedly refused. But how could she stop the old village chief? Zhang Feng couldn't stand it anymore and hurriedly stopped Jingshu, saying, "Just accept it, don't waste the old village chief's good intentions." Hearing this, the old village chief patted the back of Jingshu's hand and said earnestly, "Little girl, I am doing this for your own good. In the future, when you marry into my family, you will have to move." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face darkened. He hurriedly stopped the old village chief who was telling the two girls about the previous scandal and said, "Old village chief, today I didn't ask you to come here for this. Let's talk about the matters on the mountain. I am very busy during this period of time. This food factory and the papermaking workshop, please look after them. Also, I have set up a smelting factory. Where did I set up the rubber factory for the cowhide yellow? You know all of these, right?" Speaking of serious matters, the old village chief couldn't help but sigh. He pointed at Zhang Feng with disappointment and said to the two girls, Look, this is your man, this prodigal son." Zhang Feng hurriedly begged for mercy. Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh secretly. Seeing that the matter was about to be settled, the old village chief became serious. "I have heard about this matter. These are all your businesses. Since the academy is yours, and we have followed you to become successful, we can help you take care of this matter. On the way here, this kid has already explained everything clearly." The old village chief pointed at Shiva and said, "As for the other matters, we don't care. Regarding the order of the academy, a country has its laws, and a family has its rules. We will naturally listen to you." What else could Zhang Feng say? He could only smack his lips and give a thumbs up. Old village chief, you are awesome. Chapter 932. Gan Ziyuan waited until the old village had reluctantly left with a cigarette in his hand. Only then did he bow and push open the door to Zhang Feng's room. As soon as he entered, Gan Ziyuan hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look at Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao. He bowed to Zhang Feng, then hesitated about the identity of the two girls, his face flushed red. Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, Okay, you don't have to greet me. You should know what I asked you to do today, right?" "Yes, I know." "Then it's easy. Now that the construction of the academy is focused, how long will it take to finish the teaching building, canteen, and dormitory?" 10 days, at most 10 days. Zhang Feng nodded. 10 days was about enough time. At the very least, by the time he brought the team back from the autumn hunt, the academy would be almost done with their work. However, Zhang Feng still shook his finger and said, "It's too slow. This must be done before I come back from the mid-autumn hunt, okay? As for the construction of the 3 factories in the back mountain, it can be delayed." This, Gan Ziyuan was a little embarrassed. However, at this time, Shiva whispered, "Fengzi, I have something not worth saying." "Say it." "I have studied the construction method of the Tang dynasty, and it is completely different from the current one. So, I can't help but think of a way to speed up the construction. Hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded and gestured for him to continue. If we use the method of dividing the construction into batches, levels, and day and night, as long as the weather is good, we should be able to complete the construction in less than 6 days. Moreover, when I, Zhenla, built the palace, I used charcoal to remove moisture in the rooms, speeding up the indoors. Good. Hearing this, Zhang Feng could not help but applaud. This Shiva really hit the nail on the head. Wasn't this the kind of division system in the future? Divide it into 3 or 4 batches, and proceed with the construction in an orderly manner. This way, they could perfectly avoid wasting manpower and slacking off. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng waved his hand and gestured for Shiva to step forward. I'll leave this matter to you. It's inconvenient to bring you along during this period of time, so you can handle this matter for me first. This way, your presence on the mountain will be greatly increased. How about it? Shiva's eyes reddened when he heard that. He expressed his gratitude again and again. How could he still be the crown prince? After explaining everything, Zhang Feng's head was about to explode. However, there was still one more thing that needed to be dealt with. That was Qian Wanli, who was standing outside the door, stammering. Zhang Feng had to go out and teach him radio gymnastics. After finishing all this, Zhang Feng walked into the living room with weak limbs. At this time, Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao were still waiting for him. Zhang Feng asked weakly, "What time is it now?" "No, what time is it now?" "It's 9:15. Zhang Feng was shocked when he heard that. He grabbed the 2 women's hands and said, "Let's go down the mountain. I'll bring you to watch basketball tomorrow." The 2 women were stunned. In an instant, the 2 women's faces turned red. Although Jing Shu was not wearing a veil, her slightly red cheeks almost made Zhang Feng lose control. However, compared to Yu, who was torturous, Zhang Feng preferred this kind of educated woman. At least he was not torturous. Although the 2 women were a little conflicted, they still nodded obediently. They were secretly happy. What did holding hands mean? This meant that Zhang Feng had accepted them. They naturally heard the rumors that Zhang Feng had spread at the foot of the mountain. However, after all, the 2 women were not famous, so they could not say anything. They could only secretly feel sad. When Zhang Feng pulled the 2 women out of the door, the night wind blew. Jing Shu hurriedly pulled Zhang Feng and said, "Prince Zhang, if we go to Cheng, and now, I'm afraid that not only will we not be able to enter the door, but we will also be punished. If we delay the mid-autumn hunt." Hearing this, Zhang Feng was startled. He sighed and said, "Tomorrow then." While talking, Zhang Feng held the 2 women's hands and sat on a bench. He said, "There is no moon tonight. Xiao Chui, you go to rest first. I will talk about life with your Miss and Miss Jingshu." "Oh." Xiao Chui, pursed her lips. Only then did she carry the sleeping and drooling steamed bun into the room. After Xiao Chui entered the room, the 2 women's faces were even redder. They lowered their heads and looked nervously at Zhang Feng's small hands. They did not know what to do. Zhang Feng did not feel anything. He looked at the 2 women and said, "The night is long. Why don't we recite poems? I might as well make a timetable tonight." "That's it?" The 2 women were stunned. Although they were a little disappointed, they were also a little happy. Zhang Feng was naturally not such a playboy. He would not really do anything frivolous. It was just that everything had been pressing on his mind recently. He really did not have a good time to relax. Zhang Feng also thought clearly. Instead of avoiding, it was better to face it calmly. They had already gone up the mountain and lived under the same roof. According to the etiquette of this era, this was already a done deal. At this time, if he did not bring the 2 women with him, it was simply, alas. Although the marriage system of the Tang dynasty was good, Zhang Feng, who had been instilled with monogamy for 20 years, still felt like he was living in a dream. Chapter 933. Kacha. Early in the morning. Zhang Feng was in a daze when he suddenly heard a sound that sounded like a mouse gnawing on a pillow. It was intermittent. At first, Zhang Feng didn't think much of it. After all, this mouse was a beautiful scene in Shao Mountain. After listening to this sound for a long time, Zhang Feng's drowsiness was actually dominated by this sound. Slowly, Zhang Feng heard that something was wrong. In this sound, there was actually a smacking sound. How could a mouse make such a sound? Gradually, Zhang Feng couldn't sleep anymore. He squinted his eyes and glanced at the edge of the bed. This time, he saw something terrible. It scared Zhang Feng so much that his soul almost left his body. Oh my God! Who are you? Zhang Feng instantly sat up. Looking at the porcelain doll-like little face beside him, he couldn't help but feel his scalp go numb. The person who came was the fourth prince, Li Tai. However, at this time, Li Shimin and Empress Zhangsun were not here. Even the hermaphrodite who followed this little guy was not here. This made Zhang Feng somewhat suspicious as he looked at Li Tai, whose face was covered in grease and who was holding a pig's leg and gnawing on it. He asked, "Little guy, how did you come in? Also, shouldn't you go to the dining hall to eat? Why are you beside my bed?" Li Tai looked innocently at Zhang Feng, but his mouth didn't stop. As he gnawed, he said, "Father, Mother talked about you for the whole night. She was so noisy that I couldn't sleep. I was hungry, so I ran out to find something to eat. A big brother said that you have good things here, so I came." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's eyes narrowed. Which bastard, cough cough, which big brother said that? Li Tai sucked his finger and pointed at the guards at the door. The guards seemed to have been prepared. With a buzz, they all disappeared without a trace. It was as if he was afraid of getting into trouble. The noise here alarmed the people outside. Jing Shu, Zhang Yuyao, and Xiao Chui pushed open Zhang Feng's door in a panic. When they saw Zhang Feng, the three girls screamed. Then, Zhang Feng quickly wrapped himself in the quilt. Zhang Feng liked sleeping naked. After seeing Zhang Feng wrapped in a blanket, the two women also saw Li Tai. Women's maternal instincts were innate, this was not fake at all. When the three girls saw the chubby Li Tai, they squatted beside him and asked, "Little brother, where are your father and mother?" "I'm embarrassed, but don't tell anyone that I said it. I didn't have enough to eat yesterday, so I sneaked out early in the morning." When the two girls asked this question, they instantly understood the ins and outs of the matter. The two girls carried the half-grown Li Tai out of Zhang Feng's room. They didn't even look at Zhang Feng, nor did they ask him anything. Zhang Feng looked at the grease on the bedside and fiercely rubbed it. Lao Tzu can't compare to a little brat. F***ck. Chui, help me comb my hair. Zhang Feng roared angrily. Only then did little Chui enter the room. She turned back to look at the young lady outside and the scene of Jing Shu's laughter. Zhang Feng's complexion was very bad. It wasn't that he didn't rest well, but that he was angered by Li Tai. He wished that he could turn into a little brat at this moment. He saw Li Tai sitting in Zhang Yuyao's arms, letting the two girls and a little girl, steamed bun, feed him mouthful after mouthful of food. This little guy actually accepted it without any hesitation and was even picky about it. This scene made Zhang Feng's eyes turn red. He angrily rushed to the door and roared, "Shiva, where the F***ck did you go? Where's Lao Tzu's food?" "Teacher, I didn't put it at the bedside for you." Shiva stood at the door, feeling wronged. However, when he turned around and saw the food box in Li Tai's arms, he immediately said, "I'll be right there." As he spoke, he quickly ran away. Shiva wasn't Lao Bai. He was a veteran among veterans. When he saw Zhang Feng's jealousy, how could he not know what happened? Zhang Feng's actions caused Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao to laugh even louder. After a while, the food was delivered. Zhang Feng glared at Li Tai. The two of them looked like they were in a fit of pique. They glared at each other, neither willing to give in to the other. Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao were speechless. As they ate, Zhang Feng fiercely glared at Li Tai. Zhang Feng had a feeling. This little brat gave him a very uncomfortable feeling. It was extremely uncomfortable. It was as if everything that had happened had been deliberately arranged. How was this like a Motherf * Ker's little baby? After a while, the two of them lay on the floor and burped while rubbing their stomachs. Taking this opportunity, Zhang Feng asked, "Little brat, if your parents knew that you snuck into my room, do you believe that you would be beaten?" "I don't believe it." Li Tai grinned, revealing a pair of dimples. He smiled and said, "Father and mother said that you're very awesome. They want me to learn from you. Also, I want to learn from you. That's why I wanted to see if you're the kind of immortal they're talking about." Zhang Feng glared at him. "Who's the one who doesn't have a butt and said that I'm an immortal? Look at the immortal. Is he so angry because of you? He would have sent you flying with a slap." Chapter 934. Li Tai was too lazy to pay attention to Zhang Feng. After soothing his stomach, he returned to his curious appearance. Under Zhang Feng's gaze, he looked around Zhang Feng's living room as if there was no one around. Even the tiger skin reclining chair that Zhang Feng cherished like his life was turned into a toy for the little guy. In Zhang Feng's bloodshot eyes, the little guy actually took out Zhang Feng's sunglasses and put them on his ears. But in the next moment, the little guy actually curled his lips in disgust. He threw the sunglasses back into the drawer, but at the same time, he was tempted by the snacks that Zhang Yuyao brought over. Li Tai perfectly inherited the advantages of Zhang Sun, Wu Go, and Li Shimin. He also inherited the bad habit of being spoiled by everyone in the palace. He actually treated this place as his own home. He grabbed a snack with each hand, squatted on the reclining chair, and started munching on it. Zhang Feng looked at the pair of black little hands covered in grease and dust, going in and out of his mouth. He was speechless. How the hell did he spoil him like this? What was the difference between him and a beggar? Zhang Feng stared at Li Tai speechlessly and said, "Eat less, be careful not to get a stomachache." Zhang Feng didn't say directly that this ancestor was eating like crazy. But it wasn't good to not say it. After all, he was Lao Li's son, his precious child. Just as Zhang Feng was worrying about whether he should spank the little guys, but Jing Shu pursed her lips and said, "Just now, Mr. Bosher sent someone to say that this morning, he wants to test the morning exercises you mentioned. He wants you to quickly go to the waterfall." Zhang Feng blinked, looked at the gray sky and asked, "What time is it now?" "It's 7:15. "Then, let's go, Shiva. Get rid of this little rascal for me. I'm tired of looking at him." Before Zhang Feng could finish, the second person, who made Zhang Feng extremely uncomfortable, entered the room. After Zhang Feng saw Xiao Gizi, he immediately shut up, waved his hand, and took the two women's hands, saying, "Let's go and have a look." The two women had already held hands with Zhang Feng for the whole night. Although they still felt a little unnatural when they held hands again, fortunately, Zhang Yuyao just lowered her head and didn't blush like yesterday. This made Zhang Feng feel very strange. He really wanted to ask what Jing Shu said to Zhang Yuyao last night. However, this could only be asked at night when there was no one around. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and took the two women for a stroll on the mountain. While introducing the layout of the place, they walked towards the waterfall. Just like this, when it was about 7:15, they arrived in front of Sun Simiao's small bamboo house. Obviously, with so many people, the small bamboo house couldn't fit all of them. At this time, in front of the small bamboo house, Li Shimin, Zhang Sun, Wu Go, and Yu Shinan were eating the food of the academy while talking about something. From time to time, bursts of laughter would erupt. If it weren't for the screams of pigs being whipped from time to time not far from the back of the mountain, this would really be a paradise on earth. Zhang Feng brought the two women forward and greeted the gentleman. Chu Suiliang looked at Zhang Feng and then looked at Li Tai in Zhang Yuyao's arms. He couldn't help but laugh. "I've studied it for a long time, but I still don't know what the science you're talking about, or what the aerodynamics and resistivity you wrote about in your book are. However, Old Li said that it seems to be part of the mathematics you're talking about. If that's really the case, then you can be called a master of your generation." While speaking, Chu Suiliang rubbed his big belly and pointed at the food on the table. "If you can learn the cooking skills you talked about early on and change the food every day, even if you live on the mountain for the rest of your life, so what?" Cough, cough, cough. Ouyang Sun coughed again and again, as if reminding Chu Suiliang that it was too embarrassing. He even stared at Chu Suiliang and the others and sighed. However, he still couldn't help but smoke and drink beer. When Zhang Feng heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said, "Mr. Deng Shan is the master senior that this student respects the most. I will remember all the things that you have said in my heart. When the time comes, when I am free, Ding Dang will arrange everything." Li Shimin, Zhang Sun, and Wu Go just smiled and looked at all of this. When they saw Li Tai, they pulled Li Tai away from Zhang Yuyao's arms. Then, the women chattered and brought Li Tai and steamed Bun Chui air into the forest for a stroll. At this time, Li Shimin smiled and waved his hand to let Zhang Feng sit beside him. He asked, "I heard old Gao say that you are preparing to build a breeding base in the pig farm. What are you planning to build?" Yu Shinan continued, "I heard that you are planning to build some kind of crop that can't be finished. Can you tell me what it is?" This old Gao, when did he hear this? Zhang Feng paused, but he immediately thought of Ma Zhou. This kid must have let it slip. Otherwise, before things started, the potatoes would have already sprouted. It was unknown whether they survived or not. Who knew if they could succeed? However, at this time, they all smelled it. Zhang Feng could only nod and say, "This kid does have this kind of plan. But look at the weather. White dew has passed, and the weather will only get colder. Are you sure you can grow it?" Li Shimin asked again. Which one of the people sitting here wasn't more knowledgeable than Zhang Feng about the strange things in the world? In this winter, apart from wheat, what else could withstand the whistling north wind in Guangzhou? Everything would be blown bald by the wind. However, Li Shimin was really looking forward to this kind of thing that could be grown in winter. Now, not only was the Tang dynasty short of food, but many other places were short of food as well. If such a thing could really exist, then, in the Tang dynasty, Zhang Feng sighed and said, "This kid has been weak since childhood. Look at my small body. Until I met my master has always paid attention to food. My master has drifted to countless places and countries, and the basic things that he can eat all year round are only a few kinds of food, vegetables, melons, and fruits." Hearing this, Sun Simiao's eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of strange light. Taste the world. He had always been looking forward to this kind of amazing person, but he couldn't make up his mind to travel far. Now that he heard Zhang Feng say so, he couldn't help but ask, "Then this kind of thing, how did your master get it?" "My master once used the method of planting flowers and grass to grow a lot of strange things. He wanted to solve the problem of food shortage in the world." Zhang Feng sighed, got up, and bowed deeply to the east. "Amitabha. I've sinned. Please forgive me for exposing you, my biology teacher." Chapter 935. Let him explain these things. How could Zhang Feng explain clearly? He could only make up some nonsense. The origin of these things. If he wasn't a liberal arts student, who the hell would pay attention to these things? Fortunately, he had been thinking about potatoes during this period of time, which gave Zhang Feng time to recall the gradually blurring memories. But the effect was still very good. Zhang Feng's bow was very sincere. There was no trace of faking it. This was a form of remembrance and sacrifice to the later generations. It was also a form of reminiscence. Li Shimin and the others saw this. They also gradually withdrew the smile on their faces, stood up, and imitated Zhang Feng, bowing to the east. This kind of person who walked the world for the common people, was worthy of their bow. When Li Shimin's subordinates saw the emperor doing this, how would they dare to stand still? Everyone imitated them and hurriedly bowed. After a while, everyone who saw this side of the waterfall, although they didn't know what they were doing, the four great scholars, the divine doctor, and the dean were all bowing to the air. How would they dare to not follow? After a while, Li Shimon's waist was sore. He patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and said, "All right, your teacher is worthy of all of us to learn from. I'll find someone to bring an artist here next time. Why do you still need an artist? Can't old man do it?" Yu Shinan lightly patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and said, "Although your teacher has been wandering outside, your teacher is a senior that all of us need to remember. This kind of breadth of mind is also what White Deer College is looking for. Tomorrow, old man, take some time to tell me your teacher's story and I'll draw you a portrait of your teacher. When the time comes, we'll paste it all over the college for everyone to pay their respects. No, we have to make a statue and place it at the entrance of the mountain. Also, we have to spread his deeds and let all the students in the world remember this mysterious teacher. Believe me, this brother is right. This kind of person can be said to be at the peak. We are really ashamed of ourselves." Xueji sighed and rubbed his red nose. Hearing this, Zhang Feng realized that he had been led astray. Was he supposed to dictate the portrait? Who was he going to draw? Biology tutor? That was a woman. Although Lao Tzu respected her, but, if it was brought here, wouldn't everyone's jaws drop to the ground? After giving it some thought, Zhang Feng's target was Uncle Lu, the dormitory manager who had always made things difficult for him during his university days. This old fellow, forget it, I'll make you famous. It could also be considered as payback for puncturing your tires more than 10 times back then. Cough, cough. Let's not talk about this now. We'll talk about it later. Zhang Feng hurriedly changed the topic. However, Yu Shinan and the others were stubborn people. In their eyes, this matter was worth more than opening a sect. In the end, Zhang Feng could only compromise. He promised that tonight, he would find a few people to finalize the portrait and the life story of the character. Only then were they satisfied. Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly said, "The thing this kid mentioned before is called potatoes. In a year, it can be planted for 2 to 3 seasons. As for the yield per mu, I haven't cultivated it for the time being. I'll only know how much it can yield per mu after it's cultivated. However, a rough calculation shows that it can yield at least 300 caddies." Hiss, 300 caddies? Li Shimen and the others looked at Zhang Feng as if they were looking at a monster. Zhang Feng was talking about a conservative estimate. If it was a piece of white paper, then wouldn't it be? However, at this time, Zhang Feng continued, "The key is that this thing can be preserved for a long time. It can be used to cook dishes, make soup, and eat as rice. The key is that this thing can resist hunger." At this time, Li Shimen and the others were shocked speechless by Zhang Feng's words. The few of them could only smack their lips and heavily pat Zhang Feng's shoulder, saying, "Brat, you have a good teacher. Don't disappoint your master's kind intentions." Ouyang Sun's expression was extremely serious. He patted Zhang Feng's shoulder and stared at Zhang Feng's eyes, saying, "Kid, the old man was blind before. I always thought that the gun and the indestructible spear you made were too cruel. Now it seems that the old man was wrong. Fine, fine, fine. The old man now knows your intentions. From now on, as long as you don't take the wrong path, the old man will pretend that he didn't see anything. However, if you let the old man know that you used your things to kill people, the old man will make a fuss even if he doesn't want his life. Do you understand?" Zhang Feng nodded repeatedly and promised that he wouldn't muddle through his days in the future. Only then did the old men let him go. Seeing that the emotions of the few people had been stirred up by Zhang Feng's words, Li Shimen couldn't help but be taught a lesson. He was even more eager to get the psychology that Zhang Feng was talking about. Sun Simiao didn't care about this. He chuckled and said, "I think it's getting late. Shouldn't we test out the 8th set of radio gymnastics?" When Sun Simiao said this, everyone suddenly realized that they had almost messed up their plan. Li Shimen waved his hand and said, "Hurry up and let the students come up." Chapter 936. Li Shimen gave the order. The students standing at the side, as well as the guards who had been waiting for the order, hurriedly rushed to the side of the mountain not far away. After a while, the densely packed students, as well as the craftsmen who were prepared to watch the show, surrounded them. Li Shimin waved his hand, and everyone walked towards the viewing platform that had been built earlier. After everyone was seated, Qian Wanli walked forward with his back straight. Following the method that Zhang Feng had taught him last night, he walked forward and slapped his forehead with his right hand, saying, "White Deer College's first batch of broadcast gymnastics students have assembled." This novel method really made Li Shimin and the others' eyes light up. Zhang Feng reprimanded Qian Wanli for his incorrect hand gesture. After Qian Wanli corrected it, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Begin." Hearing this, Qian Wanli turned around and shouted at the people who were standing straight, "Everyone, pay attention. The 8th set of broadcast gymnastics begins now. Step on the spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, stretching." Following Qian Wanli's roar, the students in the square scattered. Only to see the densely packed students lined up in a loose line, imitating Qian Wanli's appearance, doing the gymnastics in all sorts of ugly ways. The more Zhang Feng watched, the more awkward he felt. He felt that something was missing. Music. Suddenly, Zhang Feng thought of an extremely important thing. That was music. Without music, it was as if there was no soul. It would be strange if the exercises were good. There was also the school uniform. Zhang Feng had already thought about the school uniform, but there were thousands of people. The school uniform was also a large sum of money. In this era, cloth was extremely expensive. Zhang Feng really couldn't bear to make a custom-made uniform. In ancient times, this kind of robe was extremely awkward when used for gymnastics. But even so, Li Shimin and the others, and even Sun Simiao, almost wanted to stick close to the students and look at their faces. What is this? This was truly shocking to them. Who would have thought that this seemingly inconspicuous thing would have a visual effect that was no less than the scale of a military drill when there were so many people? For a moment, even though the first round of the morning exercise had ended and the second round had begun, Li Shimin and the others were still deeply shocked and unable to extricate themselves. But the morning exercise was coming to an end. After 3 rounds, Zhang Feng saw that they were still the same. He waved his hand and signaled for Qian Wanli to lead them to run laps. "Everyone, look forward. At ease. Attention. Turn around and start running 3 laps around the mountain. 1 2 1. 1 2 1. 1 2 3 4. As the loud and clear chants rang out, everyone finally reacted. Li Shimin looked at the group of students who were running with somewhat messy footsteps and asked with a face full of shock, "Is this part of military science?" Previously, he had heard from Li Qingxian that after Zhang Feng and the others got drunk, Zhang Feng had mentioned this matter in the tavern. But it had been a long time and Li Shimin had forgotten about it. Now that he saw this scene, he couldn't help but recall it. Hearing this, Zhang Feng nodded and said, "I guess so. This is just the beginning. It's for the students to train their bodies. It can also be used in military science. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the foundation of military science." Now that the matter was settled, just as Zhang Feng was about to leave, he was once again stopped by Yu Shinan and the others. "Kid, don't leave yet. The matter here is settled. Shouldn't we discuss the curriculum of the academy and the rules of the academy?" Seeing this, Li Shimin said to the few of them, "Why don't you wait for a while? I have something to discuss with Fengzi." Li Shimin said. Yu Shinan and the others naturally didn't say much. After the few of them entered the bamboo house and dismissed the students who were brewing tea, Li Shimin said, "I saw the cement you used yesterday. I have something to discuss with you." "Cement?" When the few of them heard this, they instantly thought of a magical thing that could turn into stone in an instant. Their interest was piqued. Hearing this, Zhang Feng gestured to Li Shimin and said, "Brother Zhangnan, you can just say whatever you want to say. Do you want to renovate the house? Li Gan told me about this before, but we don't have enough money now. When the academy is done, I'll get Gan Ziyuan to do it for you." Li Shimin laughed and said, "Let's not talk about the song first. I have a big business deal here. Are you interested? Big business deal? When Zhang Feng heard this, he couldn't help but glance at Yu Shinan and the others. Seeing that they didn't say anything, he heaved a sigh of relief. Zhang Feng's action made Ouyang Sun and the others laugh in anger. Kid, do you really think we're old and stubborn? Aren't you old and stubborn? Zhang Feng complained in his heart, but still cupped his fists and said, Teacher, what are you saying? I think we should get your permission first. When Ouyang Sun heard this, he laughed and said, See, this kid is still holding a grudge against us. Ha ha ha. Yu Shinan and the others couldn't help but laugh and said, You can decide on these things. After all, there are so many mouths to feed. If we don't earn more money, we'll starve. Fine. It's useless to say that I'm in charge. Zhang Feng laughed awkwardly and said, Tell me, what kind of business is it? As he spoke, Zhang Feng picked up the teapot on the table and drank the tea. At this moment, Li Shimon's words made Zhang Feng almost choke to death. You know about the construction of the East Palace in Luoyang, right? I'm going to take over this matter. Pfft. Chapter 937. Zhang Feng had thought that this business was definitely related to cement. He had thought of renovating the grounds of Chang'an City and the Imperial Palace, but Luoyang's East Palace. This was something completely unrelated. Lao Tzu didn't have the ability to split himself into two. Li Shimon smiled and said, Don't be surprised. This matter started with Lord Zhangsun. Last time, when Lord Zhangsun was on his way to the military camp, he happened to pass by the market at the foot of the mountain. Not only did he not complain, but he even praised the market. He even had a home on the cement ground. Yesterday, Lord Zhangsun came to find me and said something. This matter reached the emperor's ears, and the emperor decided to hand this matter over to me. So, Li Shimon was really perturbed by Su Ku. He had pondered over this matter for a long time and hadn't made a decision. After all, if Zhang Feng took over this matter, there was a high chance that his identity wouldn't be able to be kept secret. By then, the matter of renovating Luoyang's East Palace would already be an urgent matter. If it weren't for this drought and the plague of locusts, they might have already started work. However, when Li Shimon saw Zhang Feng's strangely shaped but rather imposing and elegant house on the mountain, he couldn't help but have a bold idea. That was, he wanted Zhang Feng to use this technology on the construction of Luoyang's East Palace. Zhang Feng also didn't expect that this pie in the sky would fall on his head. Although this was a matter for the emperor, and he might not even have to wait 3 years to be recognized by the emperor and directly enter the palace as an official, benefits and risks coexisted. Such a big fat job, there were many people who saw it. If he stupidly took it at this time, wouldn't he be hated by others? Would he be remembered by others? Zhang Feng couldn't help but want to back out. Well, as you can see, this is a good thing. I know that you, Lao Li, want to help me, but as you can see, the mid-autumn hunt will officially begin in 7 days, and the poetry gathering is imminent. Luozhou is also a few days' journey from here. This, Zhang Feng's tactful refusal made Yu Shinan and the others sigh in relief. They were really afraid that Zhang Feng would accept this job. If he did, then, wouldn't the identities of the emperor and the others be exposed? Although this was nothing to them, if it really came to this point, would Zhang Feng still be here? Wouldn't the academy be shelved? This was the last thing they wanted to see. Zhang Feng's answer made them heave a sigh of relief. Even Li Shimon himself breathed a deep sigh of relief at this time. He smiled and said, I knew you would say that. As long as you agree, you don't have to do it. You just have to make the cement, okay? Zhang Feng heard this and instantly understood. He stared at Li Shimon and said, So you are thinking about our cement formula again? Li Shimon touched his nose and didn't speak. This already meant a lot. Although Zhang Feng was panting with anger, he gritted his teeth and said, Forget it, we are brothers, but this cement thing has to be split 50-50. This can't be sloppy, your brother is going to die of poverty. Also, how long has it been since you paid me? There are so many properties, I am waiting for rice to cook on the mountain. Li Shimin spread his hands and said, "Then why did I hear from the old village chief that the cellar behind your house is filled with gold ingots?" Zhang Feng's hair stood on end. He looked at Li Shimin warily and subconsciously looked at this guy. Li Shimin saw this and couldn't help but laugh. "Brat, you're really stingy. I won't tease you anymore. The money thing is definitely not going to be returned for the time being. When you open the door, I will send it to you. Think about it, how many people will come to see you open the door? When the time comes, there will be dozens of carriages carrying gold ingots. How ostentatious will that be?" Zhang Feng heard this and his eyes lit up. "Lao Li, you are so thoughtful. All right, you don't have to discuss this with me. Go find Li Gan, I will leave this matter to him." "Haha, that's good. I still have things to do at the foot of the mountain, so I won't bother you anymore." As he spoke, Li Shimin gave a fist salute to everyone and then hurriedly left. If not for these matters, Li Shimin would have returned to the palace last night. After all, Li Shimin had not attended court for a day and he felt a little uneasy. If he rushed back now, he would be able to read more memorials. After Li Shimin left, Zhang Feng explained the timetable and other matters clearly. Only then did he drag his dry throat and stagger out of the small bamboo house. This was caused by smoking too much. After Zhang Feng left, Yu Shernan and the others looked at each other and said, "What did Lao Li mean just now? Could it be that he can't wait to reveal his identity?" Sun Simiao stroked his beard and thought for a while, then nodded. "You're right. After all, although we can't see clearly what's going on inside, I feel that something is brewing. Now that Feng Zi's surprise weapon has appeared, Second Master Li will definitely want to start a massacre." At this time, if Zhang Feng is around, when everyone heard this, they couldn't help but be shocked. Was the emperor going to lay his cards on the table? Chapter 938. As soon as he came out of the small bamboo house, Zhang Feng saw Li Shimin sitting in a palanquin and leaving in an extremely ostentatious manner. Zhang Feng really wanted to beat him up. It turned out that the rules of this mountain had been completely corrupted by this group of people. Thinking about it, Zhang Feng began to wonder if he should set a rule for these guys. Otherwise, a palanquin from time to time would really be a bit of an eyesore. And at this time, Zhang Feng bumped into Jingshu, who was enjoying the scenery on the mountain. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a bright idea. Jingshu also saw Zhang Feng early. Seeing Zhang Feng walking over, they also slowed down their pace and waited for Zhang Feng. Zhang Sun and Wu Go had left, so they naturally didn't have the mood to enjoy the scenery. After all, everyone's gaze on the mountain really made them feel a little scared. Especially after the eavesdropping incident that night, the two girls were even more reluctant to walk on the mountain. They always felt that something was staring at them from behind. And at this time, Zhang Xuan's shout came from afar. "Feng Zi, something happened, let's go down the mountain." Zhang Feng was shocked, but he couldn't care less. He pulled the two girls and ran towards Zhang Sun. And Zhang Sun almost fell down when he saw this. But now wasn't the time to talk about this. He was out of breath and hurriedly said, "Feng Zi, something happened." Zhang Feng was also annoyed by him. "Say it, bastard, if you don't say it, how would I know what happened? Just now, Tai Niu and the others went to eat and met old Yu and old Chen. Then Tai Niu was beaten up, and now he's still in your tavern being beaten up." "Beaten up? Tavern?" Zhang Feng was a little confused. He hurriedly blocked Zhang Sun and said, "Tell me clearly, how did they get in?" This. Zhang Sun was stumped and didn't know what to say. But how could Zhang Feng not know that this group of bastards kicked down his door again? So Lao Tzu's door should be kicked down by you guys? When Lao Tzu makes a pure steel door, you can try it. Thinking of the broken door, Zhang Feng was no longer anxious. He asked slowly, "How's the battle situation?" Zhang Sun Chong scratched his head anxiously. Seeing that Zhang Feng was no longer in a hurry, he cursed inwardly and hurriedly said, "I reckon he'll be able to rest in bed for a month or so." When I arrived, Uncle Lao Hei was kicking the door of the tavern open with Tai Niu. Now Li Gan is fighting with Han Xian. If you don't go and stop the fight, this autumn hunt, thinking of the mid-autumn hunt, Zhang Feng became anxious. Why are you still standing there? Prepare the carriage, we're leaving now. It'll be too late if we don't leave now. Hearing this, Zhang Sun Chong ran off to prepare the carriage. Zhang Feng looked at the delicate hands in his hands and thought of the annoying Yu. He said, you guys haven't left the mountain for a long time, right? Let's take a good look around this time. We'll listen to Prince Zhang's arrangements. Jingshu didn't care. She was alone no matter where she went. Zhang Yuyao blushed again. Zhang Feng couldn't help but want to pinch her. Suppressing the impulse, the three of them walked quickly to the mountain gate. Zhang Sun was waiting anxiously for the carriage that had been prepared. Once they got on the carriage, Zhang Sun drove the carriage himself. With a flick of the whip, the carriage rushed down. When it was no longer so bumpy down the mountain, Zhang Feng asked, why did old Chen take Tainyo? There has to be a reason, right? Zhang Sun waved the reins and asked, does Lao Tzu need a reason to beat his son? After seeing Zhang Feng's expression, he shrank his neck and said, I heard that Tainyo got into trouble at Yen Lai restaurant. The girl came to find him. Huh? Zhang Feng was instantly dumbfounded. May I ask, how old is Tainyo this year? In Zhang Feng's view, Lao Li and the others were mostly around 30 years old. Even if Chen Tiniyu's parents died early, he should be at most 15 to 16 years old. This guy. Rich people are awesome. No, the Tang dynasty is awesome. Zhang Sun counted with his fingers and said, about 16 years old. We're about the same age, 16 years old. Zhang Feng nodded and asked with a bit of mischief, this guy looks so flirtatious. Didn't his father say how many concubines he should marry? Zhang Sun looked behind Zhang Feng with a strange expression and said, this guy's zodiac is monkey. He already has more than 30 concubines, pfff. Zhang Feng almost spat out a mouthful of blood. 16 years old, more than 30 concubines. F***ck. This, no wonder people in ancient times generally had short lives. If he worked so hard without restraint, it would be strange if he could live long. Zhang Feng was too lazy to care about this. After all, this was a family matter. But don't drag your family matter into my little tavern. Even if you don't want your face, I, Zhang Feng, still want it. If someone misunderstood and said that I, Zhang Feng, caused this, then I won't be able to clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River. How would Lao Tzu survive in the future? Let's not talk about this first. He couldn't even agree to the mid-autumn hunt. Although Zhang Feng didn't want to get involved in this mess, it had already happened. He had to go. People need face. Old Chen's family could be shameless, but Lao Tzu was thin-skinned. Lao Tzu still wanted to have more than one concubine. Chapter 939. Yu Lai Restaurant. At this moment it was completely surrounded. Outside the door, there were onlookers, as well as Ma Zhou and the others, who looked confused, blocking the entrance of the restaurant, preventing them from coming out. Inside the restaurant, there were shrill screams, as well as Qing Yaojin's angry roar. Kid, Lao Tzu asked you to learn from Feng Zi, but you didn't learn anything good. Instead, you learned how to fight. What use does Lao Tzu have for you? Dad, have some conscience. He doesn't blame me for this. Woo. Uncle Cheng, it's not Iron Bull's fault. Listen to me. In the restaurant's hall, Li Qingxian tried to persuade him anxiously. However, Yu Qigong, who was sitting there and enjoying this farce, seemed to be used to it. He pulled Li Qingxian and pressed him into a chair. Yu Qigong handed Li Qingxian a bamboo bottle of beer and said, this is just a small matter. Just sit still. Old Hay knows what to do. However, what you did this time was indeed a little too much. If it were me, I would throw you guys into the military camp to train. When he heard about training in the military camp, Li Qingxian's hair stood on end, and he immediately stopped talking. He had been paying attention to the military camp. At first, Li Qingxian heard Zhang Feng talk about it nicely, and those things seemed very simple. However, when he went to the military camp last time, Li Qingxian's teeth were chattering because of the training method that Zhang Feng described. That was simply not something a human would do. Carrying dozens of kilograms of stones and running around Shao Mountain as if their lives depended on it. Even when they were patrolling, they had to carry stones and tie their legs with stones. Who the hell could stand this? Even the burly Niu Jianhu and Yuqi Baolin, who were known as the ones with the potential to become military gods, broke down and burst into tears the moment they saw Li Qingxian and the others. In fact, these two tower-like men had already lost a lot of weight. This was the result of less than 10 days. If they were to carry these stones in the military camp for a month, then, wouldn't they become human beings? Thinking of this, Li Qingxian's calves couldn't help but tremble. Li Qingxian could only sigh when he saw the carefree Yu Qigong and the wailing Qing Chimo. He silently mourned for his brother. Good brother, when Feng Zi comes, you will be free. And Qing Chimo, who had been lying on the table with his butt sticking out, saw Li Qingxian, who had been standing beside him the whole time, sit down. Instantly, his cries became even more miserable. Qing Yaojin waved his horsewhip and whipped Qing Chimo's buttocks even harder. Brat, if you call Lao Tzu again, do you believe that Lao Tzu will cripple you? What a disgrace to the family. What a disgrace to the family. This time, old Shen's reputation has been King ruined by you. Your mother. Suddenly, an angry woman's voice rang out from outside the door. Old Hey, you son of TCH. How dare you hit my son? This old lady will beat you up tonight. When Qing Chimo heard this voice, he immediately started wailing mournfully. Mother, why are you only here now? If you hadn't come, you wouldn't have been able to see your son. When Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong heard this voice, their expressions changed drastically. Qing Yaojin's hand trembled as he twisted his horsewhip around the beam above his head. At this moment, Ma Zhou, Hao Chujun, and the others who were blocking the entrance were rudely pushed aside by a group of burly people. In an instant, a noble lady dressed in luxurious clothes, who could not hide her youthful beauty, rushed into the tavern. Although she had a murderous look on her face, it was still difficult to hide her youthful beauty. She lifted her skirt and hurried into the tavern. The lady was very beautiful. Even though she looked like she was only in her 30s, she wasn't someone that the young girls crowding around the entrance could compare to. The moment the lady entered, she saw the horsewhip dangling above Qing Yaojin's head and then looked at Qing Chimo, who was lying on the table and screaming miserably. Her eyes instantly turned red. Great, old Hei Chen. Who gave you the right to do this? Do you still want to hang my son? Great. Since old Yuchi is here today, let's hang him and me in front of everyone so that you won't despise us. Qing Yaojin was already sweating profusely, but he did not dare to pull the whip back. The key point was that the whip was wrapped too tightly around the beam of the house. If he pulled it back, the beam of the house would be pulled down. Qing Yaojin felt like his head was about to explode. Yu Qigong also couldn't sit still because when he was angry, Chuishi actually said Yuchi's name. He hurriedly cupped his fist and said, "Sister-in-law, please calm down. We have to talk about this slowly." Tai Nyo, without waiting for him to finish, Chuishi fiercely glared at Yu Qigong and said, "You old bastard, to think that back then at Wagong. Great aunt, can you please show some mercy?" At this moment, Qing Yaojin hurriedly covered Chuishi's mouth. Cui Dajiao was angry. This time, he was really angry. Qing Yaojin gave a look, indicating for Li Qingxian to go guard the door. Then, he pulled Chuishi's hand and pressed her down on the chair, saying, "You can't talk about this. You can't talk about this. Old. What did I tell you at home? Second master has given strict orders. Please have mercy. If you can't, we can talk about it when we go back. Is that okay?" Cui Dajiao looked at Qing Chimo on the table and burst into tears. "My poor Tai Nyo. Why is the life of us mother and son so bitter? How did you end up with such a father? No, wait, we'll go and complain to the emperor." Chapter 940. Gong also knew that this matter was serious. This damned idiot with a brain full of sperm, who knew when he had provoked a romantic debt at Swallow Descent Brothel. Then, who knew which bastard had actually revealed Ching Chimo's identity, beating gongs and beating drums as he went to the entrance of the Duke public house to cause a ruckus. This was nothing. It was enough to get some money to send him away. However, the emperor, who had just returned from Shao Mountain, happened to bump into him. This time, the fun was big. The emperor had directly said that he must give him an explanation before tonight. What was this? This was simply humiliating the duke's face and slapping the emperor's face. At this time, he and Qing Yaojin couldn't help but feel anxious. However, they didn't know that Qing Chimo was afraid of being obstructed by Cui Dajiao at home, so they went to the small tavern. But who knew that Cui Dajiao actually came to find them? Gong saw that the matter was serious. Moreover, it was obvious that Zhang Feng already knew about the matter here. If Cui Dajiao blabbered at this time and was seen by Zhang Feng, wouldn't that be terrible? He hurriedly gave Qing Chimo a meaningful glance. Qing Chimo also knew that the matter was serious. He hurriedly rubbed his butt and limped forward, lying on Cui Dajiao's knee and said, "Mother, this matter is this child's fault. This child didn't consider the matter thoroughly. This matter has nothing to do with father. As heroes, we should take responsibility for our actions. Today, this child will accept father's punishment." Qing Chimo also thought it through. If this matter was really allowed to continue like this, it would definitely be a big problem. Although he was extremely unwilling to be beaten, compared to the punishment after the emperor's identity was exposed, he still hoped that he would be beaten more miserably. Then, Qing Chimo clearly explained the whole matter from beginning to end. Especially this time, the emperor was angry. This time, Cui Dajiao was completely anxious. "My son, you. Look at what you've done." Cui Dajiao was so anxious that he was about to cry. She wanted to slap him, but seeing Qing Chimo's pitiful state, she couldn't bear to do it. She was so anxious that tears fell. She looked at Gong and said, "Big brother, what do you think we should do about this? Iron Bull is still so young, we can't keep fighting like this. If it really doesn't work, I'll marry her. What do you think?" Gong and Qing Yaojin looked at each other and sighed. This is no longer a matter of whether or not to enter the family. This matter has angered the second master. "Little sister, what do you think we should do about this?" Qing Yaojin looked at Cui Dajiao with some fear and said, Why don't we secretly find some people to take that woman away? Once we get out of Chang'an, we should be fine." "Shut up." Cui Dajiao was so angry that his entire body was trembling. "Look at what you've done. You only know how to beat your son when something happens. Now that everyone in the city knows about this, what do you think we should do? It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, would this have happened?" As Cui Dajiao scolded, he hugged Qing Chimo and cried. "Oh my God. You're asking us to do chores. You dead man, if it weren't for you, would this matter be so serious? If you don't think of a way today, I don't want to live anymore." Qing Yaojin sat there and smoked fiercely. Gong also had a headache at this time. Looking at the crying Cui Dajiao, he couldn't help but say, "Old Hey, why don't we marry her?" Cui Dajiao's fierce reputation was that when he was in Wagong, even the military counselor avoided him. When this woman was fierce, she could even be compared to a general. If this matter was not handled properly, it might really go wrong. Qing Yaojin was also in a difficult position at this time. Marry her? No, where would he put his old face? It wasn't that such a thing had never happened before. Which of those high officials and dignitaries wasn't dissolute? However, this matter was definitely caused by someone's plot. Otherwise, even if the Yanlai restaurant's procuress was given 100 guts, she wouldn't do such a thing. However, now wasn't the time to think about this matter. The main problem was how to cover up the ugliness while at the same time not letting Feng Zi know about it. Thinking of this, Qing Yaojin looked at Cui Dajiao and shouted impatiently, "Stop crying. Don't you find it embarrassing? I'll send someone to bring that woman into the family on a sedan with 8 people carrying her, okay? Lao Tzu is shameless. This time, it should be fine, right?" Hearing this, Cui Dajiao slowly stopped crying. He looked suspiciously at the ashen-faced Qing Yaojin and said, "Then what about second brother? I'll go talk to Lao Li, sister-in-law, you can go back first." At this time, Zhang Feng's voice suddenly sounded outside the room, instantly causing Qing Yaojin and the others to break out in a cold sweat. At this time, Cui Dajiao also saw that elegant and charming young master. Zhang Feng's expression was a bit gloomy. "He brought you, and Jingshu into the tavern under the guidance of Idiot Wei and Li Qingqian." Once they entered, Li Qingqian couldn't help but give them a meaningful glance, indicating that this matter had been properly handled. However, how could Cui Dajiao see their expressions? He stopped crying and crawled up from the ground. Ignoring Qing Chimo's pull, he rushed in front of Zhang Feng and sized up Zhang Feng. "You said Iron Bull and my old black's brother? That Lord Chancellor of White Deer College, Zhang Feng?" It was also Zhang Feng's first time seeing this beautiful woman. Although he didn't know what was going on, he instantly thought of something when he saw the aggrieved and timid Qing Yaojin and Qing Chimo, who had been pulling him. He hurriedly said, "So it's sister-in-law. This one has always wanted to visit sister-in-law. I didn't expect sister-in-law to still remember me." After exchanging greetings for a while, Cui Dajiao hurriedly asked, "Since you're second brother's brother, then you're also Dajiao's brother?" As he spoke, Cui Dajiao patted Zhang Feng's shoulder. Zhang Feng's face instantly paled. Following Cui Dajiao's 3 slaps, he instantly squatted on the ground, his face deathly pale. Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao hurriedly floated Zhang Feng up. This scene caused Cui Dajiao to be stunned. How was this a soft-footed shrimp? However, when she saw the 2 girls beside Zhang Feng, she seemed to have thought of something. She smiled and asked, "Sister-in-law didn't come for anything else? Since you were able to come back, you must have heard about Iron Bull. Then, sister-in-law can't count on these bastards anymore. I heard that you have a good relationship with second brother. I hope you can inform him." Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly patted his chest and said, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Leave this to this one. Iron Bull is my brother. Not a single one of them will be missing. Moreover, once he enters White Deer College, he's my, Zhang Feng's, man. If any bastard dares to touch my brother, Lao Tzu will fight him to the death." Chapter 941. Seeing this, whether it was inside or outside the house, there were bursts of exclamations. This wave of advertising was simply too good. But the people in the house were also used to Zhang Feng's pretentious guy, so they just coughed. Although Cui Dajiao was a little surprised and did not understand the meaning of Zhang Feng's words, he understood the general meaning. This time, Qing Chimo's life was saved. Cui Dajiao hurriedly pulled Zhang Feng to sit down and eagerly lit a cigarette for Zhang Feng, asking, "Little Feng, tell me, what are you going to do? And this matter, your brother has been schemed against, you can't just ignore it." While speaking, Cui Dajiao also kicked Qing Yaojin with all his might. Qing Yaojin felt the pain and then reluctantly cupped his hands. "This matter has alarmed second brother, and I even heard that Lord Zhangsun is very dissatisfied with this matter. This matter has caused me to have no choice. If I don't give an explanation, perhaps Tinu, you won't be able to see him anymore." Yu Qigong also nodded with a serious expression, indicating Li Qingqian, Idiot Wei, and the others to go out and block the door. Only then did he say, "Feng, this matter, what do you think?" Lao Li's opinion is also the same. This matter, obviously someone is targeting us, so old Shen is also anxious to beat him up. Zhang Feng did not even need to think about it. On the way, Zhang Sun Chong had already told him the ins and outs of the matter from beginning to end. The matter was very simple. That was to say, he had been schemed against. Otherwise, how could he, the procuress of Yen Lai Restaurant, not know the importance of the matter? Revealing the secrets of the guests, no matter where, was a big taboo. In the Tang dynasty, the lightest punishment was 50 beatings, and the heaviest punishment was beheading. But even so, there were still people who leaked the information of Chintinu. Obviously, this was not done by the procuress, so it was troublesome. However, Zhang Feng had already locked onto a few people. They were none other than people from Guanlong, or people from the 5 surnames and 7 hopes. As for the nobles of Shandong and the Imperial College, Zhang Feng did not consider them for the time being. Waving his hand, Zhang Feng signaled the 2 of them not to be anxious. Then, he said, "Madam, don't be anxious. If you trust me, then go back first. Rest assured and wait for my good news." At this moment, there was another commotion outside the door. Seeing this, Yu Qigong wanted to stop them, but when he saw the pink dress, Yu Qigong knew that something was wrong. He hurriedly urged Cui Dajiao, sister-in-law, "It's rare for you to come out. This is brother Zhang Feng's fiancée. Her name is Zhang Yuyao. You should know her. You should also know her." Following Yu Qigong's introduction, Cui Dajiao held Zhang Yuyao's hand for a while, then held Jingshu's hand. He was so envious that he could die. From time to time, he would glance at Qing Chimo and sigh. It was as if he was saying, "Look at him. He's not as capable as him, and the woman he finds can't even compare to a toe of his. What's the use of you?" Qing Chimo was so embarrassed that he almost wanted to find a mouse hole to hide in. At this moment, Yu Qigong hurriedly said, "Sister-in-law, why don't you bring the 2 of them around?" But before he could finish speaking, Yu Qiyu had already appeared in front of everyone. Seeing her, everyone present could not help but frown. What the hell, why is this woman here? Yu greets Madam Qin, Old Master Qin, cousin, and young Master Li. After making a circle, Yu Qiyu only glanced at Zhang Feng. However, her gaze made even Jingshu frown. Moreover, she acted as if she did not see the 2 women. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she went to Zhang Feng's side. She actually, just like that, she tidied up Zhang Feng's collar. Gulp. At this moment, everyone inside and outside the tavern stared at Yu Qiyu's every move with wide eyes. The sound of saliva being swallowed could be heard. Other than that, there was no other sound. Zhang Feng was also dumbfounded when he accidentally saw Yu Qiyu's eyes. He was just thinking about how to deal with this matter. How could he have known that this vixen would suddenly appear? At this moment, Yu Qiyu acted as if she did not see other people's gazes. She looked at Zhang Feng indifferently and said, "I presume Prince Zhang is worried about nephew Tainyo's matter?" The word nephew almost made Qing Chimo crack. Zhang Feng coughed and did not know what to say. He glanced at the 2 women and pretended to be calm as he said, "I wonder what Miss Yu means by this?" Yu Qiyu pursed her lips and smiled sweetly. "I just happened to see the scene of that woman coming out of Swallow Descent restaurant. I knew something bad was going to happen, so I arranged for my cousin's servants to deal with it along the way. I also informed Lord Nyo. I presume this matter will not be spread too widely. I'm currently looking for someone to investigate." Yu Qigong could not stand it anymore. Although this woman had really helped them greatly this time, did she not know where she was? He coughed and said, "Ahem, you, this is a man's matter. As a woman, why are you interfering? If you have nothing to do, you should read more about women's virtues." However, Yu Qiyu obviously ignored his words. She looked at Zhang Yuyao and said in surprise, "Ah, is this elder sister Yuyao? You really are as beautiful as the rumors say." No wonder Prince Zhang, Yu Qiyu laughed halfway through her sentence. Yuyao's cheeks turned red and she held Zhang Feng's hand tightly as if she was innocent. Little Cui bared her teeth and glared fiercely at Yu Qiyu. "Ahem, Miss Yu, may I know why you are here?" Zhang Feng hastily coughed and patted Yuyao's lily-white hand helplessly, indicating that she was fine before asking. Yu Qiyu did not say anything. Instead, she sat down beside Jingshu and looked at her. This elder sister must be Miss Jingshu. If Prince Zhang wants to investigate this matter, he will have to ask elder sister Jingshu. Chapter 942. The more they talked, the weirder the atmosphere became. Even Cui Dajiao realized that something was wrong. He coughed and said, "Little Feng, you go ahead. We'll talk later." After saying that, Cui Dajiao glared at Qing Yaojin and said in a low voice, "Go, go, go, what are you all standing here for?" When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but sigh. Yu Qigong wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything and left with a sigh. As soon as they went out, Qing Yaojin and Yu Qigong shouted angrily. Everyone present dispersed. In a dozen breaths of time, not even a shadow could be seen. This time, there were only 4 people left in the tavern. No, there was still Steamed Bun and little Cui, who were staring at each other. There was also Yu Qiyu, who was happily pouring tea for herself, and Zhang Feng, who didn't know whether to sit or stand. This time, Zhang Feng originally wanted to bring the 2 girls down. He said it was to relax, but it was better to say it as a shield. After all, he couldn't say it out loud. How could he refuse a girl? When he thought of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache when he saw these people. He couldn't help but laugh dryly. "That, Jingshu, tell me, what do you think of the rules of Yan Lai Lu and this matter?" When Jingshu heard this, she frowned slightly, but still said quietly, "Yan Lai Lu is a department under the jurisdiction of the Zhili and the imperial family. Although it is divided into inner and outer sect, the overall existence is to collect information and provide information for the emperor. It is a place to collect money. Therefore, this kind of thing is usually very rare. Unless the emperor or someone from the Ministry of Internal Affairs brings the emperor's handwritten order to ask for someone's information, Yan Lai Lu won't give it to them. However, from the looks of it, a certain guest must have promised some benefits to the girl, causing her to act in such a manner. Otherwise, this Swallow Descent restaurant is not a place that anyone can enter as they wish. The ladies here have all undergone strict selection and cruel training." Therefore, when Zhang Feng heard this, his frown deepened. It seemed that this matter really involved a lot of things. Zhang Feng couldn't help but glance at Yu Qiyu, who was looking at him. Although he was extremely reluctant to say it, he still asked, "Miss Yu, what do you think?" There was no other way. He could not count on Zhang Yuyao. This girl was still wearing that gauze dress. If she continued to twist like this, who knew if the dress would be torn? As for Jingshu, this was already her limit. After all, as she said, there were some things that couldn't be said. If he said too much, someone from the palace would come tomorrow. At this moment, he could only depend on this mysterious Yu Qiyu seemed to have been prepared for this. She gently tapped her teacup twice before saying, "It's actually not that difficult. I just want to stop Prince Zhang from participating in the mid-autumn hunt." Mid-autumn hunt? In an instant, Zhang Feng understood. Everything was clear now. It was either someone from the Imperial College or someone from Guanlong, because the Imperial College was basically in the hands of these 4 forces. Therefore, if he really had to find the most suspicious person among these people. In the end, Zhang Feng still felt that Guanlong was the most suspicious. This mid-autumn hunt would have the greatest impact on the Imperial College. Then, that would be the overall benefit of the Guanlong noble family. Zhang Feng's eyes couldn't help but turn gloomy. Since they are so eager to die, I don't mind wiping them out. Miss Yu, you were born in Jiangnan, so you should have some connections among the big noble families in Jiangnan. Therefore, I would like to trouble you with something. Yu Qiyu, nodded with a smile as if she had the pearl of wisdom in her hands. If it were someone else, I wouldn't want to have too much interaction with those ordinary people. However, since it is Prince Zhang's request, I will do my best. Upon hearing this, Zhang Feng stood up and cupped his fists. Thank you very much, Miss Yu, I will prepare a generous gift to thank you in the future. Yu Qiyu, blinked and said, how heavy? Well. Zhang Feng was instantly rendered speechless. Yu Qiyu smiled sweetly as he floated away. It was only then that Zhang Feng heaved a heavy sigh of relief. He had finally sent this troublesome person away. After Yu Qiyu left, Jingshu couldn't help but ask, Did Prince Zhang deliberately send Miss Yu away? Zhang Feng was speechless. Wasn't this obvious? If he didn't send Yu away, how could he live? These three were each more intelligent than the other. If he didn't send one away, how could he live? Most importantly, Zhang Feng really didn't know who was playing tricks this time. The reason why he sent Yu away was because he found her annoying. More importantly, he wanted to use her connections to find out if the noble families in Jiangnan were related to the noble families in Shandong. This was the most important thing. As long as he knew about this, Zhang Feng wouldn't have to worry about dealing with this directorate. At the very least, he wouldn't have to worry about the fire gun. At the thought of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but have a headache. You guys have fun first. Find someone to fix the door while you're at it. I have to go to the basketball court. This time, I have to teach personally. Chapter 943. What did this mean? Zhang Feng knew it very well. It was obvious that someone was targeting him. He couldn't get into Wangshan. But Chang'an City was crowded with people. It was the most suitable place for such petty tricks. Would Zhang Feng be afraid? He wouldn't, but these guys were afraid. These guys were all treasured and stubborn. Which one of them wasn't notorious in Chang'an City? It wasn't difficult to see that they had shifted their target from Zhang Feng to Chen Tinyu and the others. This was a little tricky. Obviously, they wanted Zhang Feng to have no one to play. Zhang Feng didn't even need to think about these people's tricks. Lao Li and the others had a close relationship with Lord Zhangsun, so it wouldn't be easy to deal with them. But what about Hao Chujun and Lai Ji? The more Zhang Feng thought about it, the more scared he became. When he arrived at the basketball court, everyone was still playing basketball, but everyone was listless. There were fewer onlookers around. Basically, there were hundreds of basketball courts in Chang'an City. These people went there to spend their remaining strength and hormones. After all, Zhang Feng's dream of making a promise was still needed. Zhang Feng's arrival made everyone feel a little better, but they were still a little absent-minded. Zhang Feng couldn't help but frown and wave his hand to signal everyone to stop training. He asked, Li Gan, what's going on? Li Qingxian walked to Zhang Feng listlessly and sat down next to him. He said, Lai Ji and the others just received a message from Luozhou. It said that Lai Ji and the others' families have been burglarized recently. They also received some inexplicable threats. So, do you know why? Hearing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but be surprised. He guessed right. Looking at the absent-minded Lai Ji and the others, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, I didn't think this through. But don't worry. Li Gan, tell your father about this immediately and ask your people to bring their families to your business. Li Qingxian nodded. I've already done it. After my father knew about Tai Nyo's matter, he already sent people to do it. But they are still very worried. If this continues, no one is confident. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little angry. If it was really found out that the Guanlong group did this, the Guanlong group's days would come to an end. When he thought of this, Zhang Feng stood up and took a deep puff of his cigarette before he said, Pack up your things and return to the academy immediately. We'll continue our training there. As for the matters at home, you don't have to worry. Just as I've said before, as long as you're a member of my White Deer Academy, you'll die if you touch them. Hearing this, Hao Chujun said, My father just sent a letter. He has already entrusted Luozhou's provincial governor to temporarily settle Lai Ji, Guoshi, and the others in the magistrate's office. It should have been 3 days ago. Although we are not afraid of death, we are willing to face it with the dean. We are willing to face it with the dean. Lai Ji and the others were trembling with excitement. Hao Chujun's words represented everything. At this moment, they didn't know what to say. After all, the one under the most pressure was still Zhang Feng. Thus, they were already relieved that their families were settled. As for what Zhang Feng would do next, they had no objections. However, when they heard Zhang Feng's words, they were still very touched. After settling this matter, Zhang Feng made a trip to Niu Pai Huang's place. After confirming that Niu Pai Huang was fine, Zhang Feng wrote a note and allowed Niu Pai Huang to go up the mountain. After all, it was safer to leave such an important business in his own territory. Although Zhang Feng had previously planned to spread these things around Chang'an, it now seemed like it was all too early. After that, Zhang Feng was still worried, so he made a trip to the Chang'an magistrate's office to understand the situation from Niu Weili. This time, Niu Weili got people to carry out dozens of large boxes filled with copper coins. He pointed to the boxes and said, "This is the money from selling the basketballs. There is a total of more than 300,000 strings of cash. After deducting the tax, there is still more than 290,000 strings of cash." Zhang Feng did a rough calculation in his mind. In the past 3 days, even if Niu Pai Huang worked overtime, he could only get more than 30 basketballs. How much was that in total? 100 copper coins per basket. More than 30 basketballs would at most be 400 copper coins. Where did so much money come from? Zhang Feng could not help but ask hurriedly, "Brother Niu, what's going on? Where did so much money come from?" Hundreds of thousands of copper coins was not a small amount. Even if Zhang Feng was used to seeing banknotes and gold ingots, this room full of money still shocked Zhang Feng greatly. Seeing this, Niu Weili said neither hurriedly nor slowly, "Brother, do you really not know, or are you playing dumb?" Zhang Feng widened his eyes, pointed to his nose and asked, "Your brother said it. If you don't say it, who would know where so much money came from? These are the deposits sent by the rich families of the various prefectures, as well as the buddies of the Kuja teams." Chapter 944. In the marketplace of Tonghui Lane. A group of people in dark blue uniforms were carrying a dozen big boxes, shouting along the way. "Slow down, slow down. Be careful, don't bump into Prince Zhang. Don't you have eyes? How can you bump into something like this? Boy, do you want to die?" In front of this group of people, Zhang Feng swaggered like a local rich man. 100 euros, while turning his head to look at those boxes from time to time. The shouts attracted a large number of people. What's going on? God, they're from the Chang'an local government. What's in the box, is it money? Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "I know. Do you guys remember that last time Fengzi said that this thing called basketball needs to be paid at the magistrate's office?" In an instant, everyone's eyes were fixed on the box, unable to move away. Needless to say, there was definitely money in the box. With so much money, could it be that this basketball was popular? More and more people gathered. In the end, almost all the people along the way followed curiously. When the local government runners saw this, they couldn't stand it anymore. They hurriedly shouted, "What are you looking at? Get out of my way. Don't block the way. Don't crowd around." With a series of shouts, everyone finally made way for a small path that could only allow a few people to pass through. It went straight to the door of Zhang Feng's tavern. At this time, little Cui, who had just repaired the door, didn't have time to clean up the sawdust. When she saw Zhang Feng and the people behind him, she was so shocked that she dropped the broom in her hand. She hurriedly ran into the house and shouted, Miss Jingshu, something happened. You come out and see." Young master. The two women were sitting in the tavern with a worried frown. When they heard little Cui's words, they instantly became anxious. They didn't have time to ask anything. They ran to the door and saw Zhang Feng striding into the tavern. The moment he saw the two women, Zhang Feng excitedly gave them a big hug. Of course, this hug was easily avoided by the two women. Zhang Feng had asked for a snub, but he laughed and said, "Jingshu, Yuyao, come. Take a look, what is this?" While speaking, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "Come on, just put them in the middle." When the bailiffs heard this, they hurriedly moved the tables and chairs in the middle of the tavern away. Then, they arranged the chests neatly in the middle of the tavern. Zhang Feng generously pulled out a handful of banknotes and stuffed them into everyone's hands. After closing the door with great difficulty, he rubbed his hands and said, "Little Chui, come, open all the boxes for me." This time, it was Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu's turn to be dumbfounded. Little Chui didn't know what was going on, but she still followed Zhang Feng's instructions in a daze. She tore open the seal of the government office and opened the first box. In an instant, the stinky copper coins in the box attracted everyone's attention. This, Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao were instantly stunned. Then, Zhang Feng and Little Chui opened the rest of the boxes together. For a moment, not only the three women, but even Zhang Feng himself was stunned. Although these were all scattered copper coins and didn't look as spectacular as the whole box of gold ingots, when more than a dozen boxes of copper coins were placed together at the same time, the shock was undoubtedly the same as a car full of 10 yuan being smashed into your house. But now, they also encountered a fatal problem. So many years ago, so many people saw it. This place was still not safe. Zhang Feng was also worried what to do with so much money. It was good to go to the treasury to exchange for banknotes now, but when the academy opened, they would need a lot of money. This back and forth was a little troublesome. For a moment, Zhang Feng couldn't help but rub his head and sit on the money box. He sighed and said, "I was worried when I didn't have money before. Now that I have more money, I'm even more worried." Jingshu also realized this and couldn't help but ask, "Didn't Prince Zhang plan to use the money?" Zhang Feng shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Didn't I go to check the basketball situation today? As soon as I went in, Niu Weili directly brought me so much money. Guess how much it is?" The two women shook their heads with some doubts. "I don't know. I knew you guys wouldn't know." When I heard it, I was also shocked. "That's 297,000 copper coins. Money is not a problem now." Zhang Feng smiled bitterly and said, "The key problem is that so much money. Now that Chintinu and the others have returned to Shao Mountain, it is definitely not safe to leave so much money here. This is the biggest problem. Where are we going to stay at night?" Zhang Feng spread his hands and asked the most important question. "Shao Mountain." Now, the sun was setting in the west. It was even more unsafe to leave the city. Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao looked at Zhang Feng's room and then looked at each other. They couldn't help but say in unison, "Did you forget that you have a villa?" Chapter 945. Zhang Feng had really forgotten that there was a villa. He had inherited this small pub in Chang'an City, so he really didn't remember there was a villa there. He couldn't help but ask suspiciously, "Jingshu, are you sure I have a villa? In Chang'an City?" This was Chang'an City, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. At the thought of this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but widen his eyes. He wished he could strangle Jingshu with both hands and ask her which rich man had given him this villa. Jingshu ignored Zhang Feng. Instead, she looked at Zhang Yuyao. Zhang Yuyao was a little confused and said, "Prince Zhang, have you forgotten about the villa? You won it when you gambled with old Master Li, didn't you?" This time, Zhang Feng really remembered it. He slapped his forehead hard and gave the heir a big middle finger. "Damn it, how could I forget such an important thing? Damn it." When Zhang Yuyao said this, he really remembered it. He couldn't help but lose his composure when he gambled with old Master Li last time. He grabbed Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu and said, "Let's go, where are we going to stay tonight? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Chang'an City was built on the foundation of the original Chang'an City in the Qing Dynasty and the Han Dynasty. It was located on the Longzhou Plateau in the southeast of the original Chang'an City in the Han Dynasty. In terms of ecological environment, Chang'an City at this time was much more pleasant than Xi'an in the future. At least, the climate of Chang'an City at this time was more pleasant. Now, the Guangzhong area and the northern part of Shaanxi were already covered with lush vegetation. There were also 8 rivers in Chang'an, mainly the Weishui River. From the north bank of Chang'an, there were Luo River, Ba River, Chan River, Shuo River, Feng River, Bai River, and so on. They formed a large network of water conservancy that was like a net, entangling Chang'an City. Therefore, there was a saying that there were 8 rivers in Chang'an. It was also called the 8 rivers in Chang'an. Where there was water, there was scenery. At this time, Chang'an City was the imperial city and was heavily guarded, so it was relatively safer and peaceful than other places. Therefore, there were even more villagers and rich families gathered here. With more people, the number of rich families increased. Correspondingly, the real estate industry was flourishing. Zhang Feng suspected that the current emperor might be interested in buying a house or a piece of land. The best location of the mansion of the 16th prince was close to the Daming Palace. The reason why it was chosen as the location of the mansion of the 16th prince was that it was close to the dragon vein of Longzhou Mountain. Naturally, the place where the dragon vein gathered was the Taiji Palace in the Imperial Palace. Zhang Feng was very puzzled. Along the way, he heard Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao talk about the mansion of the 16th prince and the city. He could not help but ask in confusion, I say, Laoli is really awesome. He can get such a good place where the mansion of the 16th prince occupies. It seems that he really put in a lot of effort. Jing Shu shook her head and said, this is inevitable. Master Li's mansion was built for old Master Li to serve him in his old age. Who knew that it would benefit you in the end? At that time, it was rumored that this mansion had collected many rare treasures and was extremely luxurious. Although it was built on 2 mansions, it was built after the 2 mansions were connected. But it still took 2 years to renovate. That's not all. The most important thing is that this mansion took 3 years. Think about it, how luxurious will it be? Rare treasures, extremely luxurious. As Zhang Feng listened, he was a little impatient. He could not help but urge the sedan bearer, man, speed up. You will be rewarded later. The sedan bearer was overjoyed. He waved the horsewhip and said, then, old Master Zhang, madams, please sit tight. Jia. The word madam instantly made Zhang Yuyao and Jing Shu blush. But at this time, only Zhang Feng could appreciate it. Following a shout, 8 carriages carrying simple luggage and belongings, as well as a dozen boxes of copper coins, instantly followed Zhang Feng's carriage and sped up again, passing through the busiest area of the Easter market. The most conspicuous thing was the tiger skin recliner in the carriage behind Zhang Feng. If it had not been for the Yamen runners escorting them, the imperial guards and patrolling soldiers would have come to inquire about it. Even so, those who recognized the recliner still screamed in excitement. Old Master Zhang is back. Although many people did not know who Old Master Zhang was, people who could live in the 16 royal cities were obviously wealthy and respectable people. At this time, with the movement of the carriage, more and more people saw and even heard about Lord Zhang's return. The first to know was the people from the 16 royal residences, as well as the people from the High Duke's public houses. Although they did not know who Old Master Zhang was, the mansion was the only mansion left. Who could live in the mansion so ostentatiously? Who else could it be other than Zhang Feng, whom their old master had been talking about? Wei Zheng and the others were very surprised when they heard the news. After confirming it several times, Wei Zheng, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and the others stood up and said, let's go to the mansion. Chapter 946. Before arriving at the Wang residence, Zhang Feng could already hear the clamor and clamor. He couldn't help but lift the curtain of the sedan chair to take a look. His eyes widened. He saw that both sides of the street where the Wang mansion was located were densely packed with peddlers. There were even some barbecue stalls. Most of them were merchants dressed in different attire, and they were everywhere. Zhang Feng only needed to think for a moment before he understood. Those who were qualified to live here were either rich or respectable people. It was a typical area of the rich. Why did so many people come here? It was all because of money. But it was also because of this that there were really many people wearing fashionable, bright and luxurious clothes on the street. In Chang'an City, if one could find someone who was dressed in gorgeous clothes, which one of them would not be arrogant? However, the people here, including the servants, were all wearing fashionable silk clothes. But these people were very low-key. Everyone was just doing their own things. They were not like the country bumpkins in the outer city who were curious about everything they saw. If they wore slightly better clothes, their nostrils would spit fire. But there were also some who followed the fashion. After all, Zhang Feng was sure that the barbecue merchants here were the most numerous in Chang'an City. Therefore, these people who wore the traditional clothes of the Tang dynasty would more or less wear some barbecue accessories to show their difference. The integration of foreign culture made this street the most beautiful street in Zhang Feng's mission. Even the food culture here, as well as the culture of clothing, food, housing, and transportation, was somewhat affected. For example, the barbecue, which was the pulp of Xinjiang in the future, the Indian flying cake, and the kind of thing that Zhang Feng couldn't name. He only knew that some strange things were put on the leaves of the betel nut, burned with fire, and directly stuffed into the mouth. But there were people here who dared to try it. The people of the Tang dynasty were quite open-minded. After all, this was the richest place in Chang'an City. They would vomit after eating ordinary things. Occasionally, some exotic customs would add some spice to their life. It could be seen that the people of the Tang dynasty were really open-minded. Perhaps it was because of this that there was the rule of Jingguan and something else after that. Even the barbecue stall he had invented had some changes. For example, the Turks' favorite 3 baskets of milk, 2 bowls grape wine, and 2 bowls hummus were all placed on the wine rack beside the barbecue rack. 4 people to choose from. The Tang rode the Fergana horses of the Turks, drank the Turks' 3 baskets of milk, and ate the barbecue invented by Zhang Feng. Some people didn't even play with their favorite birds. Instead, they rode horses, led Tibetan mastiffs, or pugs from the western regions, and wandered the streets. It was simply too eye-catching. There was no limit to acting tough. Zhang Feng gave that guy a thumbs up from the bottom of his heart. That Tibetan mastiff was even taller than a calf. Zhang Feng was afraid that if this thing went crazy, would it eat people on the street? However, Zhang Feng could only shrug in response. It had nothing to do with him. He simply leaned against the sedan chair and fantasized about the things in the villa. After a while, the sedan bearer's shout made Zhang Feng open his eyes. "Old Master Zhang, we're here." Hearing that, Zhang Feng lifted the curtain and couldn't help but be stunned by the scene in front of him. Outside the sedan chair, Wei Zheng and the others were already standing in front of a mansion that was at least twice as large as other mansions. The 2 pillars at the gate were actually made of red sandalwood, carved with dragons and phoenixes. Obviously, this was not a place that ordinary people could live in. However, Zhang Feng could vaguely see traces of modification. From Zhang Feng's point of view, this should have been the residence of a prince or something like that. As for who exactly it was, Zhang Feng really didn't have time to think about it. Beyond the pillars were 2 bronze and wrought iron gates. Just by the gates alone, it wouldn't be a problem for 2 horse carriages to drive side by side. What was even more exaggerated was that this gate was directly the height of a house. There were 2 large stone lions at the gate. Those guys were not inferior to the stone lions at the gate of the imperial city. With this look, Zhang Feng became even more puzzled. However, before he could ask, the ruddy-faced Zhang Sun Wuji walked up with a laugh and joked, "How is it? Isn't this mansion grand?" Under the urging of Jing Shu and Zhang Yuyao, Zhang Feng walked down the carriage and sighed, "This can't be described as grand at all. Old Wei, you're the most down-to-earth here. Tell me, which prince used to live in this mansion? Damn it, this is simply a miniature version of the imperial city. Are you sure it's okay for me to stay here?" The few people seemed to know that Zhang Feng would have such a shocked expression. Everyone laughed and said, "Don't worry, if there's no paperwork here, who would dare to live here? You already have the title deed in your pocket, what are you afraid of? Let's go, we're still waiting to drink good wine." Under the urging of everyone, Zhang Feng walked to the gate in a daze. At the gate of the mansion, there were already servants and maids that Jing Shu had bought in advance. When they saw the arrival of the group, these servants were already excited to the point of panic. Each of them shrunk their necks and stood on both sides of the gate to wait for the group. When Zhang Feng walked to the gate of the courtyard, Zhang Shan personally led the madam and the others out of the courtyard with a smile. They blocked the path of Zhang Feng and the others and said, "Wait. Come, bring the brazier and ignite the firecrackers." Chapter 947. The group of people waited. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to say anything, they clamped him down. Amidst the crackling sounds of firecrackers, Zhang Feng was placed in a brazier. A thunder that shakes the heavens, sweeping away the bad luck behind. 2 feet stepping on fire, the days are prosperous. 3 steps over the threshold, the days are better and better. Prince Zhang is back. Zhang Feng was in a state of confusion as he was carried into the courtyard. In his confusion, he saw old man Li, whom he had not seen for a long time, unwillingly wander out from behind a white marble rockery screen at the entrance of the courtyard. Following behind him were Li Shimin, Zhang Sun, Wu Go, and the others. Once he saw an acquaintance, Zhang Feng came to a realization and said, "Wow, this is all your wicked idea, isn't it?" Seeing this, Li Yuan was so angry that his teeth itched. He pointed at Zhang Feng and said, "Boy, if you don't want to live here, give the deed to the old man now. The old man is going back on his word now." With that said, Zhang Feng hugged his chest and spread his hands. "This is a small matter. I'm not in charge now. You can ask Yu Yao and Jing Shu for it. As long as you can pull down your face, I don't care." Li Yuan rolled his eyes. He really did not expect Zhang Feng to play this hand. He was so angry that he waved his hand. After holding it in for a long time, he said, "This courtyard is Lao Tzu's wedding gift to you. But boy, that you should take it easy. Although the courtyard is given to you, Lao Tzu here does not like her." It was Li Yuan's first time coming to the courtyard. The reason why he used this to bet with Zhang Feng was, on one hand, because he was still angry with Li Shimin. On the other hand, in his opinion, could this place be better than the Imperial Palace? But today at noon, he learned that Zhang Feng actually thought of this place and was swaggering about moving. He also knew that this boy actually got a few 100,000 strings of money. Out of curiosity, he wanted to come and take a look. But he did not expect that this look almost made Li Yuan want to beat Li Shimin up with regret. "Such a good courtyard, you should have told me earlier." His heart ached, but when he thought of that group of old guys on Shao Mountain and compared it to the villa on Shao Mountain, in the end, Li Yuan could only fiercely swallow his anger. But he still pulled Zhang Feng and said, "Kid, didn't you promise Erlang to go to Luo Zhou to build the East Palace? If you have filial piety, then go find me a better courtyard than this one. Otherwise, you wouldn't be willing to see this old man hold a grudge over this matter, right? This is a big move." Speaking of this, it really made Zhang Feng a little nervous. He hurriedly promised, "Old master, don't worry. I will talk to Lao Li about this later. When the time comes, this kid will design a unique and awesome villa for you. I guarantee it will be the only one in the world. How about it?" Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Li Yuan laughed and said, "At least you have a conscience. This matter is settled. You are not allowed to go back on your word. Deal." While talking, this old and young pair hooked their arms around each other's shoulders and yelled at Wei Zhang and the others to play cards. At the door, Yu Qigong and the others, as well as Yu Shinan and the others who were notified by Li Shimin, all came. They lined up in front of a table set up by Zhang Shan's housekeeper at the entrance of the residence, staring at each other. They really did not prepare any gifts. But when they heard that Li Yuan actually gave this courtyard to Zhang Feng, this made everyone nervous. They stared and called Li Shimin over. Originally, Li Shimin wanted to escape. But when he was called over by Yu Shinan and the other old guys, he could not do anything. He could only sigh and remove a jade token from his waist and throw it to the housekeeper, saying, "This jade token was personally bestowed by the emperor. It can exempt 3 capital crimes. Take it as a housewarming gift for Feng Zi." This time, Zhang Shan was so happy that he almost fainted. He grabbed Li Shimin's hand and hesitated for a long time. He was so excited that he could not say a single word. In the end, he was personally invited into the courtyard by Zhang Shan. Prince Zhang's housewarming, second master Li presents a death exemption jade token. Following the housekeeper's roar, this time, everyone was nervous. You look at me, I look at you. In the end, they scampered back to get the congratulatory gifts. Originally, they all wanted to see what this courtyard looked like. But after Li Yuan did this, who would not be worried? Fortunately, the dukes were very close to here. They left a few servants and hurried back to the residence. Master Wei's residence sent a carriage of ancient scrolls and a set of Han Dynasty carved lacquerware. Master Fang's residence sent a painting of Shoshan, a housewarming gift. Master Chen, as the congratulatory gifts were presented one after another, Zhang Shan's mouth trembled. We're rich, we're rich. Ha ha ha, we're rich. On the other side, Hao Chu-jun and the others were worried. They were all Zhang Feng's children. Logically speaking, they should give gifts. But at this time, they were scared by the gifts of the masters in front of them. How could they give gifts? Looking at the few strings of money in their hands, they silently prepared to leave. But at this time, they met the old scholar and Li Gang together. After seeing this scene, old Xiao berated, as the dean's disciples, this place should be managed by you. The gifts are small, but the feelings are important. Does your dean still care about you? Hearing this, they lowered their heads in shame. Li Gang said with a smile, what are you still standing there for? Why aren't you going to arrange the banquet? Don't tell me you want your master to do it personally. Chapter 948. In the end, Zhang Feng was unable to play his cards. With the addition of Yu Shinan and the others, the few old fellows directly took over the small lake in the back of the villa. The villa was divided into the front, middle, and back areas. The front yard was mainly used for the master's office, receiving guests, and so on. The middle yard was the resting and leisure area, while the backyard was where all kinds of rare and precious plants were planted. It was the master's most precious private area. Outsiders were not allowed to enter without permission. The layout of the villa was divided into east, west, north, south, and center areas. It was very reminiscent of the Book of Changes and the 8 trigrams. Although Zhang Feng had only taken a quick stroll, he still couldn't help but be amazed. This Motherf Ker's entire estate was at least 1,000 square meters. If this was the sheet and city of his previous life, how much would it cost? Along the way, groups of servants and maids carried all kinds of seasonal fruits, hurriedly shuttling back and forth in the courtyard. Basically, all the people he had a good relationship with from Cheng and University and Shao Mountain had come. This couldn't help but add a lot of liveliness to the villa in an instant. Why is Prince Zhang here alone on such an important day? Just as Zhang Feng was in a daze, a voice that could melt one's bones rang out, instantly waking Zhang Feng up. Looking at Yuqi Yu, who was smiling sweetly, Zhang Feng cupped his fists and said, I didn't expect Miss Yu, to also come. I missed you. Yuqi Yu's rather invasive eyes stared fixedly at Zhang Feng as she spoke. Zhang Feng was momentarily stunned. He forced a smile and said, Miss Yu, there are many good men in this world. Why do you? Yuqi Yu also withdrew her smile and pointed to a patch of grass in the forest. The two sat down side by side and said, I know they don't like me, but I really do like young master. I don't know what young master is thinking, but you, really likes young master. Zhang Feng wanted to say something, but Yuqi Yu, covered his mouth with her small hands. She continued with bleakness in her eyes, You, was born like this. If I had known that everyone was afraid of Yu's appearance, I would have used a knife to destroy number one's face and these 2 shields long ago. But you also know that a woman like me has never had a choice. Back in Jiangnan, many wastrels and rich men fawned over my beauty. If you, didn't have that kind of means, how could I meet young master today? Zhang Feng's expression couldn't help but become serious. After thinking for a while, he wiped the tears from the corner of Yuqi Yu's eyes. At this moment, he didn't know what he thought of Yuqi Yu. If he said that he didn't like her, then he would definitely be lying. But if he said that he liked her, who wouldn't like her? Sigh. Zhang Feng sighed. After some thought, he pulled Yuqi Yu into his arms. In that instant, Yuchi-Yu's body stiffened as if she had been electrocuted. But the moment she leaned on Zhang Feng's shoulder, she felt an indescribable sense of relaxation, warmth, and safety. Yuchi-Yu took advantage of the situation to take Zhang Feng's hand and stroke it over and over again. When I first came to the capital, I didn't know what Prince Zhang looked like. Some said that those who could write such poems were all over 50 years old. Others said that those who could become great scholars were mostly old men. But you had no choice. In fact, it was because of Prince Zhang's poems that I was willing to come to Chang'an. This is also fate. You doesn't blame anyone for letting me meet you. The people around you aren't wrong either. Indeed, if a person is addicted to beauty, he will sink for the rest of his life, just like King Yu of Zhou. This time, Yuchi-Yu said everything she wanted to say. Then she left Zhang Feng's shoulder and wiped her tear-stained cheeks. She smiled and said, "Your villa is very beautiful, really. You is content to be able to see this today. Tomorrow, you may return to Jiangnan. There's a letter from home saying that the king of Lingnan was the matchmaker. You is content to be able to become a princess." As she spoke, under Zhang Feng's stunned gaze, Yuchi-Yu got up and reluctantly let go of Zhang Feng's hand. She let go of his fingers one by one, then smiled sadly and said, "Prince Zhang, if fate wills it, goodbye. Don't go." Zhang Feng instantly came to his senses. He grabbed Yuchi-Yu's hand and hugged her tightly from behind. He whispered in her ear, "Give me some time. It's no use." Yuchi-Yu shook her head with a bitter smile. "This isn't something we can decide on our own. You knows what she wants. You can't give me what I want." "I can." Zhang Feng firmly growled in Yuchi-Yu's ear. Yuchi-Yu shook her head, trembling all over. Drops of tears fell on the back of Zhang Feng's hand. Things in this world, if they can really be, before Yuchi-Yu finished speaking. Zhang Feng pulled her and strode toward the backyard where Li Yuan and the others were. Although he still didn't know whether what he felt for Yuchi-Yu was love or something else, at this moment, Zhang Feng made up his mind for the first time. He wanted to keep Yuchi-Yu. Although Zhang Feng knew that he might lose a lot if he kept her, Zhang Feng at least had no regrets at this moment. Chapter 949. Zhang Feng knew that Yuchi-Yu's ambition wasn't small and that he might not be able to control her in the future. However, he also knew that at this very moment, if he really let Yuchi-Yu leave, then he really wouldn't be able to see this woman who could make his heart pound with excitement at first sight. Zhang Feng suddenly felt that he was asking for a beating. He clearly knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, and he also knew the intentions of everyone around him. Although Zhang Feng looked to be in his 20s, in terms of scheming and intelligence, everyone present really wasn't necessarily a match for Zhang Feng. However, when it came to love, Zhang Feng was still a novice. He would also be impulsive and let his emotions affect his decisions. At this very moment, when this woman shed tears, he completely threw them to the back of his mind. However, Yuchi-Yu was clear-headed. Earlier, when she learned that Zhang Feng had moved, she was abnormally excited. However, when she arrived at the gate of the park, she just happened to hear Li Yuan's words. At this moment, she knew that her little thoughts might really have bewitched Zhang Feng. However, in front of the emperor and the retired emperor, she was still an 18-year-old girl. Any thoughts were so powerless in the eyes of these two people who played with the power of the emperor. She was ambitious. As a person, who could be as indifferent to fame and fortune as Zhang Feng? She couldn't do it, especially for someone like her who had been held in the palm of everyone's hand since she was young. However, after she stayed at the gate of the park for an hour, she finally understood. At this moment, she forcibly broke free from Zhang Feng's hand, looked at Zhang Feng sadly, and shook her head, saying, "Feng Gij, can I call you that?" Zhang Feng forced himself to calm down and nodded his head heavily. "Brother Feng, I've decided. We need to be calm about this matter. I'm preparing to return to Jiangnan. If one day you can enter the court and become an official, we will naturally meet one day." As she spoke, Yuchi looked at the setting sun and then quietly snuggled up in Zhang Feng's arms. She said, "I've always liked power. Perhaps this is the reason why everyone around you doesn't think highly of me. Therefore, I'm going to use these 3 years to prepare both of us. Brother Feng, I want to leave Chang'an tomorrow. Before I leave, I want to." A rare flush appeared on Yuchi's cheeks. Slowly, Yuchi's lips trembled as she pressed her lips against Zhang Feng's. A moment later, their bodies stiffened. "Come with me." At this moment, Yuchi also let go of her reservations. With a flushed face and panting breaths, she pulled Zhang Feng into a nearby room that seemed to be filled with junk. Zhang Feng's mind went blank. This was his first kiss. He didn't care anymore. He had been desperately thinking about how to position Yuchi if he wanted to keep her by his side, but the moment a delicate body burrowed into his arms, Zhang Feng completely lost his mind. On the other side, Jingshu witnessed everything, but she didn't say anything to stop them. She knew she had no right to stop Zhang Feng. She could see that Zhang Feng liked her and Yu Yao, but she didn't know whether Zhang Feng had been bewitched by this sudden appearance of Yuchi But Yuchi words just now had deeply shaken her. Yes, in this era, if a woman wanted to protect herself from a pack of wolves, what would she do if she didn't have a layer of protection? Just like how she was in Swallow Descent restaurant. If she hadn't met that old palace maid, what would she have done? Perhaps she would have been reduced to a plaything? Younger sister Jingshu, have you seen Prince Zhang? At this moment, Zhang Yuyao's anxious and joyful voice slowly sounded not far behind Jingshu. Jingshu hurriedly wiped the corners of her eyes and shook her head. No, he probably went to entertain the guests at the door. Oh. Zhang Yuyao glanced suspiciously at Jingshu, but didn't think much of it. She pulled Jingshu aside and said, "Old Master Li and the others want to see you. They said they want to hear you play a song to toast." Jingshu had already sorted out her emotions. After taking a discreet glance at the room, she left with Zhang Yuyao. She knew that this farewell was exchanged with Yuchi's life under the noses of the emperor, the retired emperor, and many other dukes. If these people were to find out, Yuchi would definitely not live to see the next day. But Jingshu still silently prayed in her heart for this person whom she had barely spoken to, who could perhaps be called a sister. The two women left. She also sent away all the servants in the courtyard. That was all she could do. As for whether something would happen, she could only resign herself to fate. At least, nothing would happen to her lover. She envied Yuchi. If she had half of Yuchi's courage, she wouldn't have ended up like this. She also didn't know what Zhang Feng was thinking. To be honest, she was really looking forward to how Zhang Feng would face them after this incident. Perhaps it wouldn't be holding hands. Chapter 950. The lights gradually made the originally darkened courtyard reveal a different kind of charm. Since the evening, more than 30 servants in the courtyard had been hanging lanterns in every corner of the courtyard and on the trees. Zhang Feng, who was in a daze, was awakened by the noise outside. Looking at the shadowy figures outside the door, when he got up, he found that all his clothes were taken off. Then, he suddenly remembered everything that had happened just now. He looked around the room anxiously, only to find that there was no trace of Miss Yu, except for him and a patch of red on the gunny sack beside him. It was as if Miss Yu had never been here. Zhang Feng looked at the patch of red on the gunny sack sullenly, with mixed feelings in his heart. At this moment, the impulse was also awakened. Although he had seen this kind of drama countless times in the movies and harem dramas in the future, he also knew that this scene had happened to him. Zhang Feng was a little disappointed, and also a little disappointed. Was Yuchi really a bad woman? He could not tell. But as Yuchi had said, if a woman did not have a layer of disguise, could she maintain a pure body and move around in the mixed circle of the Jiangnan aristocrats with ease? As for her desire for power, she just wanted to give herself something to rely on, alas. Zhang Feng sighed deeply. At this moment, he did not know how to face Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu. Now that such a thing had happened, Zhang Feng could not help but have a headache slowly. At this moment, an anxious cry could be faintly heard from outside the door. Have you seen Master? The banquet is about to start. Have you seen Master? Master, Prince Zhang, Zhang Feng sighed. After tidying up the crime scene, he slowly slipped out of the courtyard when no one was paying attention. This was not the time to think about this problem. When he slipped out of the back door, he saw Jingshu standing there with a lamp. When she saw Zhang Feng, she didn't say anything and just silently held Zhang Feng's hand. Zhang Feng was stunned. You saw it? The lantern in Jingshu's hand swayed, but she didn't answer. She just said, she left. This is what she left for you. She left about 10 minutes before you came out. I opened the back door for her. You don't mind, right? While speaking, Jingshu suddenly turned around. Her eyes were a little misty under the light. Zhang Feng couldn't help but stare blankly. He couldn't help but hug Jingshu's slender waist. Looking at that familiar yet strange face, he said softly, "Thank you." Zhang Feng didn't read the letter. It wasn't the right time. After hugging Jingshu, the two returned to normal again. They bypassed the backyard, and the noise gradually became louder. Zhang Sun, who was chatting with Yuchi Baochi, saw the two people appear. His eyes couldn't help but brighten. Oh, Fengzi is here. This roar instantly made many people present heave a deep sigh of relief. This guy disappeared for 2 hours. Although they didn't know what he was doing, as the host, it was always a little improper to do so. However, the people who could come here were all close to Zhang Feng. Obviously, they didn't care about this point of Zhang Feng at all. They had already picked up the wine and meat to eat and drink. Fengzi, come and sit. Li Yuan smiled and waved at Zhang Feng. Only then did Zhang Feng recover. He cupped his fists at everyone and said, I didn't take good care of you. I didn't take good care of you. Just now, I had a sudden burst of inspiration. Looking at the sunset, I couldn't help but create a new poem. The people who could come were all literary masters or high-ranking officials. When they heard that Zhang Feng was writing a poem just now, although some people were puzzled, most people couldn't help but be attracted by the poem created by Zhang Feng. Although Li Yuan had doubts in his heart, he didn't want to disturb Zhang Feng in front of so many people. He said, why don't you say a good poem? Do you want to wait for old man and others to invite you? Zhang Feng smiled faintly and motioned Li Yuan not to be anxious. Then, under the surprised, puzzled, and even jealous eyes of everyone, he asked Xiao Chui, to bring a jar of white wine. After drinking for a while, Zhang Feng looked at the vaguely bright western sky and said, the sunset is just beginning, the floating clouds have not returned. The river is bright and drinking far away, the canyon rain falls and flies. The goose finally flies high, the bear feels fattened. The autumn parting guest is still there, the bamboo dew is faint in the evening. It's just a poem. In an instant, everyone was silent for a long time. Then, more than 30 people sitting at the front yard suddenly exclaimed one after another. Even Yu Shernan and the other 3 people got up excitedly and asked almost at the same time, boy, this poem, is it really written by you just now? Who wrote it for? Who wrote it for? Zhang Feng looked at the sunset with a complicated gaze. For yesterday, for the past, for the ancients. Isn't it happy to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new? Several people were a little suspicious. In the field of poetry, no one could understand the meaning of it better than them. Li Shimin sighed slightly and shook his head. Good poem. Come, everyone, raise your glasses and toast to Zhang Feng's poem. Fengzi's poem is not bad. But I think the last sentence of Fengzi's poem is better. Saying goodbye to the old and welcoming the new, isn't it what our Tang dynasty needs most at this time? Saying goodbye to yesterday's unhappiness, we are about to be like Zhang Feng today, getting rid of yesterday's bad luck. Unhappiness, we need to look at a brand new tomorrow. Isn't this kind of curiosity happy? Chapter 951. After being complimented by Li Shimin. In an instant, everyone present praised Zhang Feng's talent. Zhang Feng just chuckled. While no one was paying attention, he whispered into Li Qian's ear while toasting, "Make a copy of this poem immediately and give it to you, or personally. If you're my brother, help me once. I, Zhang Feng, owe you a favor." Li Qingxian sighed. He left without saying anything. Others might not know what Zhang Feng had just done, but as the crown prince, as well as Wei Zheng, these wily old foxes, how could they not know what Zhang Feng had done? However, they also understood Zhang Feng's meaning from this poem. This was a farewell. The banquet officially began with Zhang Feng's poem. Perhaps Zhang Feng was drunk, or perhaps he was still distressed by Yuer's departure. With a wave of his hand, he took out all the liquor that Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu had secretly hidden. Zhang Shan's face changed in anger. However, under Qing Chimo's whisper, Zhang Shan excitedly pulled Qing Chimo aside and called him brother. What else could they do? Wait for these people to finish drinking all the liquor? After 3 rounds of wine and 5 dishes. It wasn't until the gong sounded that everyone left resentfully. Most of the people stayed in Zhang Feng's villa. Anyway, there were plenty of rooms here. Even if 100 people stayed here, it would still be able to accommodate them. In Zhang Feng's living room, Li Yuan and Zhang Shan sat at the head of the table. Li Shimin, Wei Zheng, and the others sat below, slowly drinking tea. Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu poured tea for everyone over and over again. Yu Shinan and the others nodded repeatedly. All right. In any case, the 2 of you are the mistresses of this courtyard. Just let the servants do this. Sit down, this old man has something to say. Li Yuan waved his hand and motioned for the 2 to sit down. Then, after looking around, Li Yuan said, "The housewarming of this courtyard is settled. Although it's a bit rushed, this is the residence of the 16th prince. We can't be too ostentatious. However, this house is already here." Zhang Feng said speechlessly, "Is my previous tavern not a home?" Li Yuan smiled disdainfully, "Look at which businessman lives in a tavern. You are a person of status. Don't you feel ashamed to let your 2 women suffer like this?" Hearing this, Zhang Feng could only surrender. Li Yuan continued, "So I've decided that when the academy opens, we will settle the marriage. This is also a status for Yuyao and Jingshu. Otherwise, if you say you don't care, what will the world think?" Zhang Feng opened his mouth, but nothing came out in the end. "Fine. You have the final say." Li Yuan acted as if he didn't see Zhang Feng's unwillingness and said, "You 2 basically know about the academy's property. Last time when you went up the mountain, you should also understand the meaning." While speaking, Li Yuan looked meaningfully at the old scholar and said, "Brother Zihuai, don't you think so?" The old scholar didn't even lift his eyelids and just nodded. Fengzi's matter, he can decide on his own. But this cram school has no owner, so the old man thinks that we, as outsiders, should not get involved. After all, the young people are living their own lives. If we get involved too much, it will be beneath our status. The old scholar's words made Li Yuan's face sink slightly. Didn't this mean that he got involved in the matter between Zhang Feng and Yuchi? The old elementary scholar really meant it that way. Although Zhang Feng was a rascal, he was shrewd. As for Yuchi's matter, when he was at Cheng and University, he had inquired a lot. What kind of people were in Cheng and University? They were all stubborn people in Cheng and the 2nd generation of officials in Cheng and they knew these things better than anyone. The reason why he didn't stand out clearly was that he wanted to see Zhang Feng's own opinion. He didn't want Zhang Feng to regret coming to his age. As for the poem just now, he naturally understood the meaning behind it. He changed the topic and asked, "Fengzi, that poem just now, do you have a poem?" Wan Qing. Without thinking, Zhang Feng recited the 5-character quatrain of the poet Saint Du Fu. The old scholar nodded his head and stroked his beard. Good poem. However, there are some things that should be done before it is too late. Once you miss out on something, you can only regret it for the rest of your life. Therefore, before you do anything, you must think carefully. Li Yuan couldn't help getting angrier. He said coldly, Brother Zihuai, please come into the room. The old man has something to say to you. After all, you are Fengzi's elder. Let's talk about this matter. Mr. Zhang, you don't mind, do you? How could Zhang Shan dare to mind? At this time, the coldness in the two's words made him tremble with fear. He nodded hurriedly. Zhang Feng opened his mouth, but in the end, under Li Shimon's signal, he sat down. When the two entered the room, Li Shimon said, It's getting late. I have to go back. I'll disturb you another day. While speaking, he left with Zhang Sun, Wu Go and Li Tai, who made faces at Zhang Feng. When Li Shimon left, Wei Zheng and others also hurriedly bid farewell. As for Yu Shinan and others, they just patted Zhang Feng's shoulder slowly and followed Zhang Shan to their guest room. At this time, in the living room, under the flickering lights, only Zhang Feng and the two girls were left. Both of them couldn't help but start to get nervous. This conversation was obviously targeted at them. Chapter 952. In the inner room. Behind the screen in the living room was Zhang Feng's study room. The study room was very large and was basically copied from Taiji Palace. At this time, on the soft couch in the study room, Li Yuan sat there lazily and squinted at the old scholar. The old scholar stood there with his hands behind his back without fear. Although there was a little dust and vegetable juice on the white robe, the old scholar still did not bend down to clean it. After looking for a moment, Li Yuan sighed and said, Brother Zihuai, how many years has it been? Do you still want to make things difficult for me? No, I just can't stand it. Old man has been upright and plain-spoken all his life. He can't stand people who want to meddle in everything. The old scholar retorted without mercy. Li Yuan seemed to have expected it. He smiled bitterly and said, I thought you had let it go. For more than 10 years, you were in a corner of Chang and city and I was in a corner. How similar are we? But, I can see through it, why can't you see through it? Fengzi, the old scholar waved his hand and said, Don't involve Fengzi in this matter. Although I don't know what you are planning, if you dare to interfere in this matter, old man will tell Fengzi the truth even if he has to risk his life. The truth that the old scholar said was naturally the identity of Li Yuan and the others. Hearing this, Li Yuan really did not know what to say. After a moment of silence, he said, You also know that we have no evil intentions. The matter between Erlang and Fengzi, as well as all the things that have happened during this time, you must have seen them. I have long regarded Fengzi as a friend, as you when you were young, don't mention the past. The old scholar scolded angrily, which was rare for him. It seemed that he did not want to mention the past, which was like a nightmare. Li Yuan bitterly laughed, All right, since you're unwilling to mention it, then I won't say it. However, I presume that you also know about Miss Yu Er's matter. Feng Zi's way of dealing with people is to go with the flow, and he doesn't have too much of a greedy heart. However, this Yu Er's heart for power is too heavy. If they walk together, the old scholar waved his hand. He also sighed and said, Uncle Li, I've said this before. Fengzi can make his own decisions. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have gone to Yangzhou, and Yangguang wouldn't have. Don't tell me you want to repeat the same mistake. With this, Li Yuan finally shut his mouth. A pained expression appeared on his face. A moment later, Li Yuan said, I indeed did not consider the matter back then thoroughly. That is why I do not wish for Fengzi to repeat my mistakes. Presumably, you have inquired about Yu Er's matter in the academy. You have always treated Fengzi as your son. It is not appropriate for me to say much about this matter. However, let me remind you that although this matter does not seem to be a big matter now, the things that Fengzi has grasped, once it falls into someone else's hands, even Erlang and I won't be able to protect it. Li Yuan did not lie. The things in Zhang Feng's head, anyone could think of, and there were even people who had always wanted to murder Zhang Feng. If it were not for the Chang and garrison waiting around, as well as Li Shimin and Li Yuan standing on the surface, Zhang Feng, but now, once this Yu Yu got involved, everything would be hard to say. It was very likely that the network that Li Shimin, Li Yuan, and the others had woven to protect Zhang Feng would be completely broken. It was not that Li Yuan was not considerate. Zhang Feng was a lazy fellow who was used to going with the flow and was carefree. However, the old scholar said, "Have you ever thought about what is the most important thing for a woman, or a person, to protect themselves? Power. As well as a sense of security and a backer. Another example is a drowning person. What does he want the most? It is to get a life-saving straw. I know about you, Ers matter. The reason why she is like this is because she wants to survive in the midst of a pack of wolves. It is impossible that you do not know about this matter. But what about you? You strongly rejected her as soon as you met her. Is this to protect her? This is to make her and Fengzi feel guilty for the rest of their lives. It is even likely that love will turn into hatred. This is a seed of hatred. Think about it again. Fengzi's character is a prodigal. Naturally, it is impossible for him to support a family. What about Jingshu? Do you think she can play this family well? Can she let the Zhang mansion operate in this Chang'an city with ease? Do you think Zhang Yuyao can do it? They may be good, but that is before you appeared. A family must need a good wife and a good mother to manage the house, but also need someone good at business. You just said that Fengzi's property is now all over the place, and there will be countless things in the future. Do you think a good person can bear a big family business? You are right. A gentleman is important, but a villain is also necessary, just like the situation in your family now. What is old Wei? What is old Sun? What is old Chen? Only such a combination can form an invincible family, but you don't want to see Fengzi rise with such a family. I want to ask you, what are you afraid of? Chapter 953. Li Yuan was silent. The old scholar was right. He understood the principle of mercy not controlling soldiers and righteousness not controlling wealth, but he really couldn't see through this Yuchiyu. At this time, the old scholar's words couldn't help but move him. Outsiders couldn't participate in Feng Zi's things, especially his life and property. No matter how they protected him, Zhang Feng still needed to bear the burden that he should bear, such as the responsibility of a man, the harmony of a family, and so on. However, Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu, although Jingshu was very scheming and very good at planning, Li Shimin wanted to give her to Zhang Feng because he valued her. However, she wasn't good at socializing and speaking, so it was a bit difficult. Although Zhang Yuyao was good, she was too simple. Without scheming, she was easily deceived by scheming people. These two lived well, but as the head of a family, to control the operation of the entire family, they were really a bit lacking. This was still an ordinary family. However, was Zhang Feng an ordinary family? No. Li Yuan couldn't help but sigh deeply. He got up and patted the old scholar's shoulder, saying with a wry smile, "Brother Zihuai is still the same as before. Whatever you say, you hit the nail on the head. I admit that you won this time, but I still insist on letting nature take its course. What do you think?" While speaking, Li Yuan also handed the old man a cigarette, but the old scholar acted as if he didn't see it. He sat on the soft couch and said, "This matter, old man Zihuai will explain it clearly to Feng Zi. However, under the premise that this matter hasn't completely lost control, you still have to come forward. At the very least, you have to protect Miss Yu, Li Yuan had no other way. He could only nod and then leave with his hands behind his back. In the living room, Zhang Feng and the other two sat quietly, thinking about their own worries. After seeing Li Yuan come out, Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao hurriedly got up. Zhang Feng glanced at it lazily, and then did what he was supposed to do. Li Yuan happily gestured for the two women to sit down before looking at Zhang Feng. "Kid, old man will come to talk to you about something tomorrow. I will let you go today. As for this engagement, you can do as you see fit. As long as you feel worthy of them, it's fine." While speaking, Li Yuan gave Zhang Feng a meaningful glance, and then hurriedly left. This time, Zhang Feng could not help but be stunned. "You guys were the ones who forced me to get married and go on blind dates, and now you're just going to let me do as I please? What was the meaning of this? But in this case, Zhang Feng really breathed a sigh of relief. At the very least, although he was now a person of the Tang dynasty, his soul was still that of a good young man in the 21st century. Although he dreamed of having 3 wives and 4 concubines, he was a little overwhelmed at this time with only 3. If there were more, how bad would it be? Therefore, Zhang Feng had a headache about marriage. If there was no he might not have a problem getting married when the hospital opened. But the key was that appeared. And now she had sex with him. The true meaning of first love was hard to forget. Perhaps wanted Zhang Feng to be unable to forget her. However, even if did not think so, as a man, would he let her be alone outside? Then he was not a man. At this time, the old scholar appeared in front of Zhang Feng without him knowing. He sat on the main seat opposite him, smoking while staring at Zhang Feng. This action made Zhang Feng have goosebumps all over his body. After watching for a while, the old scholar asked, "Tell me, what do you think of This, Zhang Feng could not help but be at a loss for words. Looking at Zhang Yuyao and Jingshu, Zhang Yuyao's face turned red. She got up and was about to leave, but the old scholar stopped her. They were going to eat under the same roof from now on. Since they were both here, they had to have a good talk. Zhang Feng was stunned. Jingshu's eyes flashed with a look of as expected, while Zhang Yuyao's face turned even redder. She stood there, not knowing where to sit or stand. She was so anxious that she could only change her clothes. The old scholar pretended not to see and said to himself, "Since you've done it, you have to take responsibility as a man. No matter what anyone says, you have to hold on to what belongs to you. That is what truly belongs to you. Anything else can only be used as a reference. Don't be swayed." When Zhang Feng heard this, it was as if a sudden clap of thunder had exploded in his head. He really did not realize that he had slowly started to pay attention to other people's feelings. He had even been led astray. How could he not understand what the old scholar had just said? If Zhang Feng had to say it, he would have said it better than the old scholar. However, he had forgotten about this matter. Now that the old scholar had mentioned it, he suddenly came to his senses. "Old scholar, you are right. This matter is my fault." As he spoke, Zhang Feng smiled and grabbed Jingshu and Yuyao's hands. "Previously, I was shackled by some unwarranted things. Now that I think about it, it's really, but now that I've thought it through, don't worry. Once I'm done with my work, I'll definitely give you a wedding that you'll never forget. How about it?" Chapter 954. Felt as if her entire body had been torn apart. However, the pain in her body made her feel a little sweet. However, the crack in her heart made her feel as if she had lost all her strength at this moment. She didn't know what she had done wrong. Why did the emperor and retired emperor reject her so much? Was it because of her face? Sat in front of her dressing table and stared at the beautiful face reflected in the bronze mirror. For the first time, she felt a sense of disgust. She had once been proud of this face, a face that could easily move through the many great clans of Jiangnan, but for the first time, she felt lost. She hated it. Sat in front of the mirror for an entire night. Early the next morning, a maid knocked on the door. Only reacted after a while. "Miss, it's time to leave, but there's someone at the door. He says he's looking for Miss He's from the palace." Turned around with some bitterness. She glanced at the door, then said indifferently, "Let him come." "Miss I'm here on retired emperor's orders." An old eunuch's voice sounded at the door. The moment the voice sounded, froze. She had no choice but to hurriedly open the door and bow slightly to receive the order. The old eunuch was naturally one of Li Yuan's men. He glanced coldly at then said indifferently, "Retired emperor said to take care of yourself. He and his majesty will no longer interfere in the matter between you and Prince Zhang. However, you must remember not to implicate the Yuqi family." After saying that, The old eunuch looked meaningfully at Yuchi and said, "That's all. This is the result of His Majesty, retired Emperor, and Her Majesty's discussion last night. I don't need to say anything more about Prince Zhang's matter, do I?" Seeing that Yuchi didn't speak, the old eunuch continued, "I'll give you a word of advice. If you want to stay, don't think too much. Prince Zhang is the most awesome death exemption gold medallion. Do your wife's affairs well and manage the household and property is the right path. Do you understand what I mean?" Yuchi-Yu's face was already covered in tears. She was pleasantly surprised, but more than that, she was at a loss. The old eunuch glanced at Yuchi-Yu, then slowly walked away. After he left, the servant girl happily helped Yuchi-Yu up. "Miss, you don't have to leave." "There's no need to leave." Was there really no need to leave? Yuchi-Yu turned her head and looked at the poem that Li Qingxian had personally delivered to her on the dressing table. She couldn't help but be at a loss. She had indeed thought about scheming before, but after thinking about it for the entire night, she understood a lot even though she was still unwilling to give up. So what if he had immense power? So what if he had the power to overturn the world? She was a woman, and all she needed was a safe harbor, a man who truly loved and cared for her. Before last night, she didn't understand. She couldn't tell if Zhang Feng really liked her, but now both the emperor and the retired emperor had taken a step back. It seemed like this was what Zhang Feng had fought for last night. This man, was it worth it? Silly man. On the other hand, Zhang Feng woke up early in the morning. Because he was still unmarried, Zhang Yuyao followed him back to the Zhang residence last night. Jing Shu followed them as well. Being smart, she didn't say anything about what she had seen. Zhang Feng was so touched that he couldn't wait to take her on the spot last night. But this was how it was in this dynasty. If unmarried people did things, they would be punished. If it was a light punishment, they would be beaten. If it was a heavy punishment, they would be locked up in a water dungeon for a year. If one could survive a year in that stinking ditch, they would be considered amazing if they could even stand up. That was why the water dungeon of the Tang dynasty was the most terrifying existence. They wouldn't beat or scold you, and you would eat and drink 3 meals a day. There would be meat and wine, but if you wanted to poop, you would have to do it in the water. If you wanted to sleep, then you would have to soak in the water. In the water prison, you wouldn't be thrown into the water. Instead, this prison cell was the same as a normal prison cell, except that it was built in a smelly ditch. If you were lucky, you could sleep on the bed even if the quilt on the bed was wet during a drought. However, if you were unlucky, you could sleep on the water bed when it rained. In less than a month, even if you didn't freeze to death, you would be killed. But there was a doctor here. As long as you had a headache or fever, he would do his best to treat you. This was the most nerve-wracking part. At the thought of the water dungeon, Zhang Feng couldn't help but shiver. Pushing open the door, a maid hurriedly helped Zhang Feng wash up and tidied up his hair. Zhang Feng moved his arms and looked around the courtyard. Along the way, 2 little maids followed him closely. Zhang Feng waited until there was no one around before he glared at the 2 maids and said, "Immediately prepare a sedan chair for me to go to the city gate." The maids were stunned. But this was the master's order. They didn't dare to disobey. They hurriedly went to prepare. But at this moment, the servant at the door hurriedly reported, Master Li has come to visit. He is already waiting in the living room." Zhang Feng frowned. "Master Li? Which Master Li?" "It's a head full of white hair." Before the servant finished speaking, Zhang Feng instantly understood. He hurriedly left the servant and went to the living room. But at this moment, at the city gate of Chang and City, a long line of carriages with no end in sight was slowly approaching. After the leader of the group handed over a document, the guard was shocked by the goods. He asked, "Are you sure these carriages are filled with tobacco? Are they for the Chancellor of White Deer College, Prince Zhang?" Chapter 955. In Zhang Feng's living room, Li Yuan was lying on Zhang Feng's tiger skin recliner, smoking leisurely and playing with Zhang Feng's small wine jug. Seeing Zhang Feng come in, he took the opportunity to put Zhang Feng's wine jug into his arms, which made Zhang Feng want to hit him. Why is Lao Tzu like this, and his son like this? As expected of his biological son. Zhang Feng pretended not to see it. Anyway, this thing can be mass-produced now. If he likes it, I'll just give it to him. As soon as he entered the door, Li Yuan laughed and said, I didn't expect you to wake up early today. Why can't you sleep because of your little lover? Zhang Feng asked calmly, what little lover? Don't talk nonsense. By the way, why are you looking for me today? I'm still busy. Are you interested in the Dongdu? Li Yuan smiled faintly, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He asked, what do you think of the Dongdu? Zhang Feng didn't know what was wrong with the old man today. He actually learned from Lao Li and asked this kind of thing that could cause him to lose his head. But looking at the origin of this courtyard, Zhang Feng made a gesture of silence this time. After dismissing all the servants, he said, Old man, did you take the wrong medicine this early in the morning? This matter is not something we can inquire about. Li Yuan asked subconsciously, why can't I inquire about it? Isn't this related to my house? What's wrong with asking? And this is where the 16th prince's house is, the information is tight here. Tell me about it. I also have an idea in my heart. Zhang Feng was very unhappy. This matter, although it was really nothing. But to rashly comment on the Dongdu, that was a serious crime. After all, this was the rules set by the retired emperor. But seeing old man Li pestering, Zhang Feng said helplessly, okay, don't worry, let's talk about it slowly, okay? Hearing this, Li Yuan was willing to do it. At least you know your place. Tell me, should the eastern capital be repaired? Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and searched his mind for a long time about Dongdu, from the Han dynasty to the fall of the Tang dynasty. Then, he asked, Grandpa, let me ask you first. Do you think Dongdu should be repaired or not? This time, Li Yuan asked. He pointed at himself and shook his head, you brat, aren't I asking you? Tell me what you think first. Zhang Feng rolled his eyes and sat down on the chair with his legs dangling in the air. He drank tea from the teapot and said, actually, without the Yellow River as a natural barrier, there would be no need to build the Dongdu. Not only would it be a waste of manpower and money, but also, isn't Chang'an good? The dragon vein of the Qinling Mountains in the south and the dragon head of Longzhou Mountain in the depths. What is this? This is the place where the dragon veins converge. Above it is an endless mountain range that separates the Turks. To the west is Liangzhou and Tongguan, and to the east is the natural barrier of the Yellow River. Could it be that this is not a treasure ground? Look at Qin Huang and Hanwu again. Why didn't they go to Dongdu? Instead, they stayed in Chang'an all the time. Look at the map again. You will know that once the capital is moved, without the control of Chang'an, the nomadic tribes in the north and the Tubo and Tuyuhan in the south will no longer have any worries. Once they enter Chang'an, then, it will be difficult to fight back. Li Yuan was shocked when he heard this and asked hurriedly, do you mean not to repair it? Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously and hooked his finger. Li Yuan was so angry that he patted Zhang Feng's head. Zhang Feng said honestly, repair it is equivalent to the emperor preparing to move the capital. Once the capital is moved, it will inevitably cause turmoil in the north. Once the north is in turmoil, the various clans in the south will slowly taste it. Li Yuan couldn't help but slowly sink his face. Although he didn't participate in the court at this time, Dongdu had always been a knot in his heart. Building it was the general trend. Moving the capital was also for this aspect. It was around the change of Wei River that he had this idea and proposal. But at this time, Zhang Feng said so. Li Yuan suddenly thought of the invincible thing made by Zhang Feng and the gun that was being cast. He couldn't help but feel a little scared at this time. He couldn't help but feel a little upset at this time. The matter of building the Dongdu had long been discussed in the imperial court. At this time, the national strength of the Tang Empire was basically unable to bear the renovation of the Dongdu. Li Yuan asked again, are you sure that it's useless to build the Dongdu now? it is still a little useful. Although the previous dynasty was a waste, it did a good thing. It connected all the major river areas in the Tang dynasty. Dongdu must be built, but the premise is that after the iron-armored ships are built, thousands of miles of Jiangnan will be reached in a day. This Dongdu is an important place to contain the south. Zhang Feng changed the topic and added, but the premise is that we have to complete the integration of the northern forces before that, as well as intimidate them. Otherwise, do you think the emperor will agree to the matter of a turtledove occupying a magpie's nest and becoming king? He is not a fool. Li Yuan couldn't help but secretly say, sure enough. Forget it, this matter has nothing to do with us. Later, just give me the blueprints for the construction of my manor, as well as the approval documents for the required materials. As for the construction, I'll let Erlang take care of it. However, I really have an important matter to discuss with you today. Zhang Feng heard this and said, what is it? It's about the mid-autumn hunt. Li Yuan looked at Zhang Feng and said, he doesn't know where you got this basketball from. Although it is spreading in Chang'an and even the surrounding areas, the assessment of the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Rights came out yesterday. This thing is not suitable. Chapter 956. Not suitable? What did he mean? Did he just dismiss him by saying that he was not suitable? Zhang Feng couldn't help but be a little confused. Old man, where did you get this news? Where? Li Yuan smiled faintly and said, do you think that the old man has lived his life in vain? Zhang Feng really didn't dare to think so. After all, he knew the four great scholars and seemed to have a good relationship with them. He also knew Sun Simiao and the old scholar. His identity was a mystery. However, Zhang Feng didn't think much about it. After all, a businessman was bound to make friends everywhere. It was normal to have such a network. He couldn't help but ask hurriedly, tell me, halfway through his words, Zhang Feng suddenly exclaimed, did you get the news from the Ministry of Works? But there are still 6 days. Damn it, he should have sent it to me earlier. This is Chang'an City. Would he die if he sent it to me earlier? Li Yuan leaned close to Zhang Feng and whispered, I suspect that this is the work of the Imperial College. What are you going to do? Are you going to destroy the Imperial College, or? Zhang Feng couldn't help but shiver. He seriously doubted whether this old man was mentally abnormal. Why did he always like to encourage him to do stupid things? The Imperial College, what kind of place was that? That was the National Academy appointed by the Emperor himself. It was the first academy of the Tang dynasty. Did he want him to destroy it? Zhang Feng wanted to, but was it possible? Zhang Feng stared at Li Yuan speechlessly. Li Yuan was a little embarrassed. Why are you staring at me? Zhang Feng stared at Li Yuan and said, I want to see if you are awake. I beg you, don't tell anyone about this kind of thing. Don't tell anyone that you said it to me. Otherwise, I don't want to die. Was it so terrible? Li Yuan sighed. Forget it, forget it. Let's not talk about this. I heard that there were people from the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Rights, and the Ministry of Appointments. After hearing about this basketball, they felt that it was new and tried it out. In the end, several of them had their bones broken and are still lying in bed. Zhang Feng's eyes turned green when he heard that. He asked in a trembling voice, may I ask, do they know the rules of basketball? Don't tell me they're using kuja to play basketball. What's the difference? Li Yuan retorted. This time, Zhang Feng was stumped. He fiercely rubbed his face and pointed to the door. Don't you know that I have pasted a notice on every basketball court? Could it be that they didn't even take a look? Didn't anyone teach them how to play basketball? Didn't you tell them that I use my hands to shoot the basketball? Oh my God, what did I, Zhang Feng, do wrong? CK his mother. At this moment, Ma Zhou rushed into the study with an innocent face. Without waiting for him to salute, Zhang Feng asked speechlessly, aren't you practicing? What's going on? Why don't you stay on the mountain? Are you here to be scolded? Okay. Can't we talk nicely? Li Yuan hurriedly persuaded Zhang Feng. Then, he looked at Ma Zhou and asked, "Tell me, what's going on?" Ma Zhou was a little confused. What happened to Zhang Feng today? He glanced at Li Yuan timidly, then looked at Zhang Feng and said, "It's like this. This morning, before the morning exercise, Chen Tinyu and the others played basketball in front of all the students. As a result, as they played, they started to hit people. In the end, they even hit people. They were seen by Mr. Bosher. Mr. Bosher asked me to call you up the mountain to discuss." The basketball stopped. If this goes on, something will happen. Hearing this, Zhang Feng's blood pressure shot up with a whoosh. Okay. Mother asterisk Kerr, you can't change your bad habit, right? You like to hit people, right? Okay, Lao Tzu is going to get rugby now. Everyone put on a protective suit. I'll let you hit people. Zhang Feng left angrily as he spoke. Mother asterisk Kerr, I can't live anymore. I just got the news that this damn Imperial College is causing trouble. I haven't thought of a solution yet. Mother asterisk Kerr, something happened here. There are still 5 days. How is this enough? What can it do? You have no place to vent your strength, right? You like to pretend to hit people, right? Okay. This time, Lao Tzu will let you hit people properly. Anyway, although Lao Tzu doesn't know much about rugby, he can still teach you, this group of rookies. It's still not too late. Didn't the people from the Ministry of Rights and Ministry of Works say that basketball is bad? Okay, Lao Tzu will let you hit people properly. Zhang Feng left angrily. Only Ma Zhou and Li Yuan were left staring blankly at each other. After a while, Li Yuan cried out in his heart. This grandson probably thought of some evil move again. Li Yuan couldn't help but slap his thigh and say, "Oh no, Ma Zhou, right? Quickly go back to Shaoshan and inform Mr. Bosher about this. Leave this to me." As Li Yuan spoke, he hurriedly left the living room. Ma Zhou was also stunned for a few breaths. Only then did he react and run out of the door. After knowing this, the maid who was called by Zhang Feng to prepare the carriage stared blankly at the 3 people who ran out of the courtyard. She couldn't help but be dumbfounded. What's going on? The carriage is already prepared. Do you still want it? Chapter 957. Zhang Feng was really angry about this. If the people from the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Rights were conspiring, then what happened next was not a conspiracy. It was King failure. They were already bullying him. King failed to live up to his expectations and only knew how to act cool all the time. Zhang Feng was furious. He wished he could just ask Chen Tinyu to get lost. He was bad at everything, but he was the #1 troublemaker. Just like that, Zhang Feng went out of the villa and got into the horse carriage at the entrance. He pointed at Tonghui Lane and the horse carriage sped away. Jingshu's ability and foresight were still very unique. These servants were all carefully selected by Jingshu in Chang'an City. Although Zhang Feng did not know how many of them were bought from human traffickers, at least the sturdy bodies of the gatekeepers at the entrance were quite intimidating. In addition, the coachman was not bad. Although Chang'an City was not open for the morning market yet, there were many people on the streets. Most of them were shouting and fighting on the basketball court. For a ball, some people were fighting, some were even cursing. There were people from young to old. Damn it, there was not a single good person. From the bottom of their bones, they were that kind of reckless. They only knew how to hit people or talk with their fists. Although this kind of fierce atmosphere was inherited from the Qin and Han dynasties, Zhang Feng could not be bothered to do anything about it. After all, there was a reason why the national football team was so lazy. However, basketball was played with the hands. If it was just 1 or 2 fouls, Zhang Feng would be able to treat him as a weirdo. However, the big words on the backboard and the text explained that basketball was played with the hands. Using the feet was considered a foul. However, along the way, Zhang Feng saw people who listened to him. However, not everyone was like that. Zhang Feng passed by 5 streets. On these 5 streets, he saw some people who were relatively gentle and thin. They still did things according to the rules. Zhang Feng could not help but wipe away the urge to abolish basketball in his heart. As long as there were people, there was hope. It was just that everyone had not changed their habits. At this moment, one side of Tong Hui Lane was shrouded in a layer of gray smoke. This kind of smoke was somewhat choking, somewhat pungent, and made one's chest feel stuffy. Evidently, it was coming from the chimney of the cowhide ovens where rubber was being boiled. Zhang Feng didn't go directly to the beef hide yellow. Instead, he returned to the tavern and prepared some food. After finishing his meal, he took a lunchbox and went to the brewery next door. Someone had already blocked the entrance from the inside, leaving only a small door that could only allow one person to enter and exit at a time. There was a large notice written on the door, which roughly meant that this place was temporarily closed. However, there was still an old man dozing off on the wooden stool at the entrance with his eyes half closed. Seeing that someone had arrived, the old man waved his hand without even lifting his eyelids and said, "Do you see the words on the door? We're out of wine. We'll come back after the new year." "Old man, it's me, Zhang Feng," Zhang Feng said with a slight smile. When the old man heard that it was Zhang Feng, he suddenly woke up. He squinted his eyes for a long time before slapping his thigh and wanting to stand up. However, he was pressed to the ground by Zhang Feng. Slow down. You'll hurt yourself if you stand up like this." The old man was so excited that his dry lips couldn't stop trembling. "Prince Zhang, why are you here? If you're coming, you should have sent someone to inform me first so that I can tidy up." Zhang Feng didn't argue with the old man. He pointed to the door and said, "This place is pretty good, but it's a little too obvious." The old man clearly didn't understand Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng was too lazy to explain. He pointed to the door. The old man suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted, old Ding, open the door. Prince Zhang is here." 2 exclamations rang out from inside, followed by a series of clanging sounds. Then, the tightly shut door was slowly opened from the inside. After the 2 old men inside confirmed that it was Zhang Feng, they hurriedly bowed down to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng talked for a long time before the 3 old men allowed him to enter the house. As soon as he entered the yard, Zhang Feng smelled something. "Has the thing I mentioned before sprouted?" Hearing this, the 3 old men pulled Zhang Feng to the side of the wooden trough as if they were presenting a treasure. They carefully removed the quilt covering it. The moment the quilt was removed, rows of tender yellow potato sprouts that had just drilled out of the soil were reflected in Zhang Feng's eyes. Seeing this, Zhang Feng couldn't help but give the 3 old men a thumbs up. "Good, it's really good." When the 3 old men heard this, they grinned like a child. "Is this thing done?" Zhang Feng nodded and then shook his head. "I don't know, but this is only the first step. I'll give you a task now. Remember it." The 3 old men were refreshed. "Prince Zhang, even if you want us to pour our blood on it, as long as you don't think our blood is dirty, we won't complain." Zhang Feng was shocked. He waved his hand repeatedly and said, "Who said that? You don't have to do that. What I mean is that I have a villa in the residence of the 16 kings. It's not safe to leave this thing outside. I plan to find some people to move this thing into the house. You just have to follow the method of this stove and get someone to create an environment that is exactly the same as this one within today. As for the materials, you can ask the old village chief for them." Chapter 958. The 3 old men had heard about this at the door yesterday. For old men like them who were lying on the ground waiting for death, it was already a great favor for Zhang Feng to give them a mouthful of food. Not to mention that the task given to them at this time was so simple. They actually had wine and meat every day. Even if they had lived for most of their lives, they dared not imagine such a life. But in the end, they could actually have such a good life every day. But now, Zhang Feng actually asked them to live in the residence of the 16th prince? What was that place? That was the most prosperous and enviable place in the whole Chang and city, except for the imperial palace. How could they live there? Zhang Feng ignored the three old men's nagging and refusal. He pointed to the tender seedlings in the wooden trough and said, "These things are cultivated by you. Do you have the heart to give them to those who don't know anything and let them spoil them? This is my painstaking effort. You also know that this is Zhang Feng's big secret. Are you not going to help me?" While speaking, Zhang Feng flicked his sleeves angrily and said, "Think about it carefully. If you want to go to the old village head or go to Chang and University to find Lao Xiao and ask him to send someone to carry this thing. If you don't want to go, just tell Niu Pai Huang." After Zhang Feng finished speaking, he left. Only the three old men were left in a daze, with tears running down their faces. The potato seedlings sprouted. Zhang Feng was happy and worried at the same time. He was happy that the potatoes did not go bad after soaking in the sea, but he was worried about the problem of pollination. Everything else was easy to deal with, such as photosynthesis, temperature, and so on. It was July now, and the temperature in Chang and city was still very pleasant. At least before October, the temperature was still warm enough for the potatoes to mature. The most important and troublesome thing was the problem of pollination of these potatoes. He had to do it himself. Once insects, birds, butterflies, and flies contaminated the potatoes with other pollen, it would be difficult to say the effect of the potatoes. This was a good variety of potato seeds, so Zhang Feng was particularly cautious. Even if it was slightly affected by the outside world, the production and quality of this thing would drop a lot. This thing was unique in the current Tang dynasty. If this thing was spoiled, it would be really bad. What was this? This was a golden nugget. If he could make it, the money he could make would be much more than the fine salt, not to mention anything else. While thinking about the potatoes, Zhang Feng slowly walked on the street of Tonghui Fang with his hands behind his back, thinking about all the things that had happened during this period. At this time, Zhang Feng unknowingly walked to the door of Cripple Wang's house. He bumped into Cripple Wang, who was going home to get something. Cripple Wang almost did not recognize Zhang Feng. After Zhang Feng walked past, Cripple Wang suddenly remembered that Zhang Feng seemed to be in Tonghui Fang. He hurriedly went up and grabbed Zhang Feng, saying, "Feng Zi, no, director, please wait." "What's wrong?" Zhang Feng was a little unhappy, but when he saw that it was Cripple Wang, he asked curiously. Cripple Wang hurriedly pulled Zhang Feng to the side of the corridor, and then stammered, "Director." Zhang Feng handed Cripple Wang a cigarette and lit it himself. He smiled and said, "Just call me Feng Zi. This is not the academy, don't be so formal." Cripple Wang was overjoyed when he heard this. He hid the cigarette in his hand like it was a treasure, and then said, "Well, I was born in the military. Although many of them have the ability to make a living, I still have some good brothers who are still hungry. Some time ago, after hearing about our situation, they wanted to come to the mountain to live." Zhang Feng quickly interrupted Cripple Wang and said, "It's not that I don't want to accept people. You also saw that there are so many things happening on the mountain, but there are already more than 5,000 people. This can't go on like this." But Zhang Feng thought for a while and asked, "Where were your old brothers before this?" "They just retired from the Long Yu army." "Isn't the Chutzi army going to war?" "Originally, they could still muddle along in the military, but now they can't." Cripple Wang sighed and hurriedly said, "When I said muddle along, I didn't mean muddling along and waiting for death. They were all good men with good skills, but in the end, they were specially trained in the military for the lieutenant. It has been more than 10 years since then. To be able to stay in the army for 10 years, one must either have real talent or real connections. Otherwise, especially in an important military area like Guanlong, it was impossible for there to be such an existence, let alone one who had been in the army for such a long time." Seeing that Zhang Feng did not speak, Cripple Wang asked tentatively, "Yesterday, I heard from the neighbors in Shao Mountain that Director Qiao has moved into the residence of the 16th Prince? That place is extraordinary. Which mansion doesn't have a private army?" "So, President Zhang, do you want to guard the courtyard?" But don't worry, as long as you give them something to eat, they won't be greedy. Chapter 959. Zhang Feng's eyes lit up. Are you sure it's free? Cripple Wang laughed bitterly. They are a bunch of rough people. Their families are either dead or lost for many years. Do you think they will come to Chang and to seek refuge with me? These old buddies of mine are all very straightforward people. They also came here because of your reputation. They don't have any other abilities, but they can easily beat 10 people. Don't worry, as long as you tell them to beat someone up, they will do it without hesitation. Even if that person is at the end of the earth, they will find him for you. It seemed that these soldiers were not ordinary soldiers. Could it be that Lao Tzu had picked up a treasure? Hearing this, Zhang Feng laughed loudly and said, Ayaya, what are you saying, old Wang? Do you think I, Zhang Feng, am someone who lacks money? I admire people who are willing to sacrifice their lives for their country. Otherwise, why would I go to Enlufang to look for those old soldiers? You know, as long as I, Zhang Feng, want people, I can get them with a wave of my hand. But I still chose you guys, didn't I? Zhang Feng was boasting. He did not even need to prepare a draft. Now, he just opened his mouth and said it. The reason why he went to Enlufang was because it was cheap. Cripple Wang was well aware of this. But even if his heart was like a mirror, he was still very touched. In this era, these old soldiers were treated like the plague wherever they went. If it were not for Zhang Feng, these old buddies would not have survived the famine, not to mention eating meat and drinking wine leisurely on the mountain. Cripple Wang was so excited that he gave the most respectful military salute. Although his legs were not very convenient and his actions were a little comical, he still felt that it was the best thing he could do. Zhang Feng's face turned serious. He hurriedly helped Cripple Wang up and said, What are you doing? Don't be like this. Tell me, how many of your buddies are there? Cripple Wang was overjoyed. Is this a confirmation? Originally, there were around 30 people, but he had to leave a way out for his brothers. He rolled his eyes and said, For now, there might be around 30 brothers, but the brothers behind may come at any time. Cripple Wang was not good at lying and it took him a long time to finish his sentence. His face was flushed red and he did not dare to look into Zhang Feng's eyes. How could he hide this from Zhang Feng? Zhang Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, I can take care of these people. After all, my house is big and there are more than 30 people. I can just let them go. As for the people behind them, we can talk about it when they arrive. I'm going to set up a security department. If your brothers are reliable, I'll take as many as you have. What do you think? Security department? Cripple Wang did not know what it was, but Zhang Feng actually said that he would take as many as he wanted. This time, Cripple Wang was so happy that he almost wanted to hug Zhang Feng and take a bite out of him. He hurriedly expressed his gratitude. Zhang Feng was also very happy. He put his arm around Cripple Wang's shoulder and thought about the future. To Zhang Feng, the arrival of these veterans was like the arrival of divine soldiers from the heavens. He was still unsure of where the danger was and who was targeting him. From the immortal ointment to the Imperial College, the unknown enemy had been hiding in the dark. Zhang Feng was afraid. Especially now that he had a big family and business, he had to find some reliable people. But he did not expect that Tong Huifang would be his lucky day. It gave him a group of excellent veterans. It was simply, in this way, Zhang Feng only needed to wait for Gao Ken to come back from the military training and then set up a security team. Then, thinking about it, the two of them arrived in front of the Niu Pai Huang workshop. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to shout, Cripple Wang shouted at the top of his voice, Niu Pai Huang, young Master Zhang is here. This shout was incredible. Originally, in the workshop, Niu Pai Huang was holding a small teapot and walking with his head held high as he reprimanded his disciples. However, when the words young Master Zhang came out, Niu Pai Huang instinctively returned to his original form. He hurriedly turned around and after seeing Zhang Feng, he ran out with a salivating face. Prince Zhang is here? I was wondering why K-Air was pooping on my head today. So it is Prince Zhang who has graced us with his presence. Zhang Feng's face stiffened. He was too lazy to talk nonsense. He waved his hand and said, "Okay, okay. Immediately arrange some people for me. I want to make a new toy." Niu Pai Huang heard this and his eyes lit up. "Prince Zhang, you don't want to make basketball anymore?" "Yes, I still want to make basketball. But this new toy must be made by today." "Forget it, I will tell you. You make it. It will be faster this way." Zhang Feng was too lazy to talk nonsense. He waved his hand and was about to roll up his sleeves when Cripple Wang was stunned. He asked, "Fengzi, then what should I do?" You came at the right time. Immediately weave a basket for me. It will look like an egg with two pointed ends. It will be the same size as a basketball. It will look like a stretched ball." Zhang Feng pointed to a basketball with a leather cover on the table and said. Hearing this, Cripple Wang was overjoyed. He hurriedly rummaged through the workshop and finally found a green bamboo in the stove. He squatted in front of the stove and began to weave the bamboo strips. Zhang Feng also began to draw a blueprint in a hurry. When the blueprint was completed, Zhang Feng handed it to Niu Pai Huang. He said, "This is for you. You must make it for me before tonight. Is that okay?" Niu Pai Huang looked at the blueprint and then looked at the blueprint for Cripple Wang. He gritted his teeth and said, "If you are in a hurry, 2 hours. I can make it for you in 2 hours."